All right, well, y'all, it's Friday night. It is 6 past 10 p.m. It's Friday evening, the 12th of November. And I hope everyone is doing well. Took me a second, of course, to put everything intact. I guess the company that we use in streaming seems to be listening to some of our discussions. I'm really appreciate it. So next week, you're going to see some pretty good, exciting updates and upgrades to what you see here at the New Norm 2.0. So welcome. This is America's favorite online talk show that comes on Friday night at 10 p.m. with your man, the sexiest man in this chair right now, your boy Mo Delgado, the one and only baby. And I hope everyone is doing well. Last week I couldn't come on, unfortunately, because our family experienced another loss, another tragedy. One of our regulars, our executive, um, my mother-in-law. She's passed on, and she's now in the kingdom of heaven. So she's looking down, still watching the show. Nick, I know you're there. I know you're checking it out like you always do. So moving forward, I just want to make sure everybody's doing well. But we're gonna talk some stuff, starting with okay, um, some people earlier on the chat. What's up, Santos? What's up, brother? Um, I hope everybody's well. This is my Inlet fam reaching on right now in the chat room. Remember, the internet-based talk show that you are is called New Norm 2.0. It gives you an opportunity to come on the show and have a conversation about the topics that we're talking about or any topic that you find interesting or something prevalent, something important. Later on tonight, we're going to have one of our community advocates, Brother Steve Young, to come on and talk about some things that he finds he deems necessary or required to come on the show to have a conversation with us. It's extremely important that we stay connected, and we appreciate Steve Young for all he's done and all he continues to do to try to make sure that the fight is had. Um, so we're gonna keep the fight going. So in the meantime, we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the um, present situations that have transpired recently. One of the things that we always talk about is the vaccine or COVID 19, SARS, COVID 19, and the way things are going. Oddly enough, there's been discussions had about how it seems to be we're hitting around the corner, as they say, hitting the corner, meaning we have a better control or our numbers of people, of new cases of COVID 19 seems to be declining. Um, I am comfortable to say that I'm starting to see a lot more people um, be a lot more attentive to the need to be protected, whether it's by the distancing or the masks and the 6 feet, things of those natures. It's really helpful. It's really comforting to see that the community that you live in is concerned about their health as well as your own. So we're getting to see that a lot more. What I want to sort of express more is that there's a discussion right now that Pfizer, the major corporation that got the first approval from the FDA for their vaccine, is now proposing having a pill form of the vaccine. Um, there's a race to have this pill. The first pill that was offered on this planet was AstraZeneca, and AstraZeneca is from it's it's based off of it's based in Europe. So we get to see how Europeans tend to work. And one of the biggest dilemmas that we saw is that the AstraZeneca Corporation was intending on making it available to Americans, but of course at a much more elevated price. Greetings to my brother Stephen Jackson. Um, so the dilemma right now is the discussion is who's going to be able to offer that pill form. We don't know the efficacy rate as far as the pill is concerned, but we would imagine that it equates or it's equal to what Pfizer had already offered to America in a vaccine form. So that dilemma, that discussion is going to continue going. Um, the importance of it being able to be ready for America has a high priority because we are creatures of comfort and we want to be very comfortable in what we're doing and how we're doing it. And imagine taking a pill once and you're good. I think that was the fantasy that Johnson and Johnson had unfolded onto America, and unfortunately, Johnson and Johnson failed. It's like they talc. The issue with talc in women, it failed highly. So we'll see how it goes. There's still more discussion being had. There's long-term concerns that still exist as far as the vaccine is concerned, and because the carrier of the pill itself is different from what the vaccine carrier is, there's concerns that it may have long-term effects. I see a head bobbing behind me. Of course, it's my wife bobbing, trying to duck, but she looks like the whammy that you see on a TV show. So my reason want to bob and weave. So the Pfizer vaccine is being developed right now. It's actually in the later stages of its offering, so expected to come in front of the FDA for approval. Moderna's version of it will probably follow right behind it, and we'll see how good it goes. But the wonderful aspect of all this stuff is that we're continuing on being a responsible society to trying to make sure that we stay healthy. It's extremely important because COVID-19 is still a threat to all of us. And now as we see our children being vaccinated, I think it brings some sort of comfort to one aspect, but to play devil's advocate, are we now placing our children in jeopardy by whatever we're being vaccinated with? To my conspiracy theorist brothers and sisters out there, you know what we're talking about, right? But for the rest of the world, there's a level of comfort to be had when it comes to the vaccine. So as we're moving forward, we're paying attention, as you notice. So I don't know if it has to do with the presidency, the shift in politics, and the shift on who determines what is important as far as politics is concerned, but you don't hear too much of Wuhan anymore, right? Do you? I don't hear too much. You heard anything about Wuhan in a while? I haven't. So, Big Boogeyman seems to have faded away. I don't know. But as more and more reports are coming in, different parts of the world are addressing the issue, addressing the need in various ways. There is actually some biogenetics being done in South America with regards to food and how to genetically modify certain foods to make you even more defended, to create the defense mechanisms inside the body using food. Those of us who are more holistic and trying to be as more true to our indigenous roots may see this as a viable option anyway, because some of us, we like to believe that there's the source of most antidotes, a source of most medicines, source of most solutions, genetically or biochemically, we can find in food. We should be able to find food. So I hope that goes on, because I'd rather just eat a better diet and stop worrying about popping some synthetic stuff back in my system some way, somehow. So, but that's my feeling. And as we continue the stuff to look into, one of the topics that I know was a big hot topic recently that is just stirring up in the past 2 days is the discussion being had in the trial presently taking place with brother Arbery. What's the Jamal Arbery? Oh, now she left. Anyway, the discussion more so is the defense attorney for Rittenhouse. I think that's the young man's name who's presently in on trial now for the Arbery death, the murder they committed. The the strangest thing, how the defense attorney basically had a lapse in judgment and made a statement to the public saying he is concerned, troubled, and or defensive and wants to oppose black clergy being present at the case. He also tried to identify Jesse Jackson as being at the case, and he's saying, in his emphasis of black clergy and members of that, he recognized later on in the day, or was brought to his attention, that it sounded to be racially biased or insensitive, and today he tried to backtrack and to suggest that no, he's not that. I think he already put his foot deep in his mouth and showed his deep country roots, and that's going to be a very big um, battle to climb. That mountain that he's already put in front of him is now even further. It's even taller. So we'll see how that goes and develops. But I can almost guarantee there's going to be a decision to remove him and replace him with another lawyer, a defense lawyer. But that's how the law goes. Let's see how it goes. But let's make sure that justice is had in the proper way. But a guy who's an attorney just coming out of nowhere. I'm tired of seeing black clergy, black this, black that. Yeah, you can almost sort of see that in the back of his mind, he was filling and replacing words for one word for other words, and his whole sentiment was racially tense. So that's the one topic that seems to be also going. Another hot discussion being had is the conference, in Congress, the infrastructure passing. The discussion is still going on, but if we're going to talk about what is available, what isn't, what passing and what isn't, there's so much of the infrastructure that was not included, or so much of the proposed bill that was not included in the final passage of the infrastructure bill. The great, as Congress tends to do and society likes to do, is put the president's name in a bill or a major initiative being pushed by the president himself, like we saw Obamacare, and now this is Biden's infrastructure. So the things that are missing, what's in and out, just as a quick point of reference, just for discussion, just to give you some idea, and this is based off of the original proposal for the infrastructure was $2.6 billion. And the bipartisan plan that was offered is $550 billion. So just to give you a scope on things, I'm going to show you a New York Times has given or provided a cool little, New York Times has given a cool little, some sort of interactive screen that I'm going to add. You guys can see this for yourselves. The scope of it is pretty cool if you look at it. The R&D manufacturing 0, 0. What the hell is this about? Okay, I really don't know. Maybe I should have done a little bit of research on this one, but what I can see is the power infrastructure of 65, I guess, million. Roads and bridges has $110 million. Cleanup and abandoned wells and mines, Superfund sites is $21 million. R&D and manufacturing, it's 0. Housing, school, and building is 0. Clean energy tax credit, 0. Home and community-based care, 0. It's only reconnecting communities is only $1 million. Public transit is only $39 million. Airports are $25 million. Electric vehicles are 15 million. Water infrastructure, 55 million. Broadband, 65 million. Railways, 66 million. This is what's offered in this infrastructure bill. If you see what I see, there's a lot of stuff that's missing. Initially, the $1 trillion bill talked more so about the infrastructure, the actual proposal of the transit, how we need more high-speed rail, and rail wasn't available. It's not even there. So I don't know. Need to go back this anyway. I'm gonna just go off of this and just continue off in the discussion that we had anyway. The infrastructure bill is being fragmented, and if the more and more we go forward, the more we see that what was talked about was discussed. It's not going to necessarily roll out into the communities as we hope. Philadelphia is one of the towns nearest to us that's expecting to receive millions of dollars to help in infrastructure, meaning the roadways. I know my city where I live in, I know that was a big wish list that was proposed by the administration, the mayor itself, trying to wait on for his share, for the handsome share that was supposed to come to New Jersey and hopefully shoveled down to Atlantic City. But even that now is in question. How much money has recently been agreed on? As a case point, just recently a discussion was had at City Council to discuss the proposed diet of Atlantic Avenue. If anybody's been to Atlantic City who's not been to Atlantic City, Atlantic Avenue is probably our widest street, and it's a 4-lane street. So at one point in time used to be the main street or the primary thoroughfare of all retail business and some restaurants there. But as time has gone and society has changed a bit, and what we're offering, how we're offering things has changed a bit, it's not as popular as it used to be. So there was a proposal done not by the city and not necessarily supported by the residents. It was sent by the state officials. Just as a side note, these same state officials seem to got their asses whooped in this last election. So let's see how this goes on. But anyway, this is a proposal sent down to diet or to minimize and cut down the Atlantic Avenue. This is proposed, and they talked about how Atlantic Avenue has so many accidents have taken place. It's very dangerous how it is built up, and the essence of what they're trying to do also is trying to promote a safer area and arena. They're saying, well, maybe if you cut down the size of the street, it'll be easier to do so. If you looked at a national aspect, Atlantic Avenue was recently, the most recent was emphasized about how shooting took place, broad daylight, in front of a sub shop, and a murder took place on Atlantic Avenue, and this is one of the target areas. Oddly enough, right after that, not long after that, this was this proposal about shortening the street or tightening the street. So it's a very unique disposition. But just recently, it went to City Council as proposed in a special meeting, not a regular meeting. This was a special meeting. This is a proposal. Apparently, the powers that be see that the special meetings need to be had when there's a planned announcement to the general public of how fabulous a person is or how wonderful administration is. We're going to propose this, and the next day. Well, I guess they didn't get the memo because the residents of Atlantic City stood up against it, and so did City Council, and it failed. So the street widening and the proposal of all this money is supposed to be coming from the Department of Transportation of the state. That was said to be not our tax dollars, and that's one of the reasons why it should have been easily agreed on that it wasn't our tax dollars. Again, it's that mentality that some people think just because it's not our tax dollars, it's not someone's tax dollars, and we don't have to be as responsible about those tax dollars because it wasn't our taxpayers that paid for it. What kind of shit is that, right? Anyway, so it failed. So I can almost guarantee that really soon it'll be brought back in the table, although we have laws in the book saying that if you bring something to the table and it fails, it should not and cannot come back for 6 months, and they seem to always pop the hell back up. I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but it's the same old idiotic stuff. Anyway, so we're talking about funds from a national standpoint being brought in to the state municipalities and counties and everything through the infrastructure bill. There's a lot of proposal being had about these funds, but of course, as a lot of municipalities, a lot of states, what they do is they try to earmark specific amounts of those funds for specific pet projects. And that's why a lot of times major things that are being touted to be had in cities don't necessarily transpire. A lot of times just people jumping the gun. Sometimes it's lack of full disclosure, lack of full discussion, and then you can't necessarily see things being executed the way you'd like them to be, because that's the truth of it. So that's the infrastructure. One of the aspects of the human infrastructure that seems to be going, that's still pending, I'm still trying to figure out why it's not sitting there, is the free education, community colleges, and also free education working with pre-K 3, 4, and 5. Funds that were supposed to be allocated for that, which is the investment in human life and in kids and education, was pulled out mostly by conservative representatives in Congress. conservative representatives. Not going to say Republicans because we had a couple of those Dixiecrats who showed their cards. And again, as I say this, as a lifelong Democrat, who is now a proud, even more proud independent, as we move forward, we have to step away from that fallacy, that nonsense to believe that parties have our best interest at heart. They don't know us. They hardly know our communities. Even those that are supposed to represent our communities that are inside those circles and part of these parties have long lost the connection, who have long lost the identity of being part of these communities. And at times, what they do is seek audience with other communities to look as if they represent these communities, not really caring of how these communities are represented. They just want to be part of the in crowd. And that's how they get in, and that's how they stay in. So in this situation, when we talk about D's and R's, think about transmission. Someone's going one direction, another one's going another direction. But obviously, they're both broke as hell, and they're not going anywhere. So that's why I'm independent, because this broke transmission shit is not doing nothing for any of us, and we're all fighting. So I know a lot of good people who are Republicans who sometimes act like what we think Democrats should act like. And then there's Democrats who are just a bunch of assholes and might as well should have been Republicans because they act just like the stereotype of what a Republican acts like. So we'll see. But that's my story. And so as we move forward, let me change the light around. It's a real cool little thing that I have in the background. Let me upgrade the color. So that's one discussion that's as far as we're talking about when it comes to infrastructure. Some of the other elements of the infrastructure that we talked about also that should have been really rolled out is rail. The rail system here in America is antiquated. It's one of the main reasons why the transportation industry, it sucks. And retail industry, it's gotten so expensive because there's not enough drivers. The issues that we have as far as the pandemic is concerned, how the drivers are put under extraneous situations. The climate that they have to work in sometimes is dangerous, even with our new laws and trying to create opportunities for them to get more rest. There's still a lack of adherence and a lack of regulation, and there's a lot of people put in danger. So to my long distance truckers and my short truckers, man, I wish you guys the best, you women and the ladies also. God bless you all. Be safe out there because there's a lot weighing on you being able to deliver. So hopefully we'll get it right and we can get our rail system up to modern day statuses like in other nations that are right underneath us as far as the status wise of being first world countries. Like in Asia, Japan and the Trans-Asian rail system, we're talking about high-speed rail systems that can deliver stuff at a larger rate and a larger capacity from one part of the nation to the next part of the nation. And this is the kind of stuff we need to entertain a little bit more to alleviate the roadways, alleviate such a congestion of long-term transportation or long-distance transportation using the roads through tractor trailers. I know one of the aspects that are being talked about is using electric automated vehicles to be able to deliver. But of course, as we see with a lot of electric vehicles, that's still a big degree of error that still has to be concerned, because when we're talking about merchandise and then the weight of these vehicles, the potential of it causing chaos or potentially harming others when something goes awry as far as the controlling systems, I think these are the things that we can't play with. So it's things that we need to do. So, okay, Brother Steve, you're watching. You can come on at any time. I can just put you in idle. And then when we're ready to talk, to have that dialogue, I can just click you on. So just come on by. Let me play songs because I know co-host should be here shortly. I know he's always asking for the link, so let me get it ready for him. In talking about that, the importance of the rail system is something that we definitely need to really look into more because the high-speed rail system also helps out with America now just recently opening up. What I mean by opening back up, the pandemic caused the limitations of people being able to travel internationally. Not only weren't we allowed to go to other nations that have closed their doors to us, but our doors were closed up to a major portion of the world as well. So we just recently opened back up. So international travel now is open both ways. However, there are restrictions with this travel. Anybody coming in have to be vaccinated and or tested within the last 5 to 7 business days um, to ensure that they're not they're free of COVID-19. I know the discussion still continues as far as the restriction, whether they can alleviate the mandate to suggest someone needs to be vaccinated, because that's the biggest dilemma, mandating whether people are vaccinated or not. I think this is a discussion that's probably going to spur out even more discussion, and probably it's going to expose a lot of our tenacity for chaos. Sometimes expose the validity, the volatility that we have as a nation, independently as people. That's one of the biggest issues that we had recently about the mandate. The mandates that we saw just recently saw a big uptick of individuals rebelling at the lowest levels, like school boards, when children had to be mandated to wear masks and what have you. You saw a big rebellious amount of people come to talk about their things and showing up and really being um, very stern about their opposition to these mandates. These mandates also, you saw, exposed a large portion of our medical staff. We're talking about doctors and nurses who choose not to be vaccinated. However, they're in the field that's supposed to maintain us. They're in the field that are suggesting that we need this. So that's a big asinine disposition. You know, the people who are supposed to protect us aren't protected themselves, and they're suggesting we need to protect us. So that's something of big concern we need to look at as well. Also, we saw that in police departments, people having blue flus and not coming to work because they were mandated. You saw places and arenas in California and other places like Chicago and Ohio, especially Ohio. Ohio got a big ass problem when it comes to race and police and sensitivity. I don't know how these the folks down in Ohio can do it, man. Because every time I turn around and look at Ohio, those issues are serious over there, man. So for anybody living in Ohio, y'all stay safe out there, because people act crazy all over the place. But y'all Ohio got a special kind of crazy over there. There's a lot of joking about people from Florida, a lot of jokes people about living in New Jersey, but in Ohio, I don't know. I think y'all take the cake. God bless you. Y'all protect yourselves. But as we're now it's now 10:30, and we're gonna move into the dialogue. My man, brother Steve Young, has now chimed in, and I'm about to welcome you on. Stop that. Stop. Um, Steve, you're on. There you go. Such a handsome brother. How are you, brother? Microphone. You gotta turn on the microphone, Steve.
Yes, how's everybody doing? Peace to you.
Yeah, man.
Salam.
How are you? Good evening,
Alaikum, everyone.
man. Hitting the world, man. How you feeling this day?
Oh man, great and outstanding, man. The struggle continues.
Yes, it does. It is. Without no struggle, there is no what? Progress. That's right.
Progress.
So I got to understand where that come from. Do a little research, you know. But here we are. Thank you for coming on the show. I know we've been trying to get you on quite a few times in the recent past, but because we moved into a late hour, it might have been difficult for you, because this brother's an advocate and he's out there early, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes being out there doing the God's job for him. You know what he does best. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on and link up here in the new norm, hoping that you can spread some love. So give us some updates, brother Steve. What's going on in the world?
I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up with you, brother. You on the road, man. I listening to you, man, about all the things, and I'm glad you just don't keep it local. You keep it international.
Got to, man.
What it's all about, man.
Got to, man. Got to. We always try to be conduits of news, because there's such a lack of news in our area. So, and then we're disconnected with the world. We don't necessarily make those connections how one impacts the other, and it sort of works against us. So, like yourself, because you just came off of this major personal dedication. It was a long march, right, that you took place.
Yes,
brother, tell me a little bit about that, man.
67 miles with people organizing for progress. Larry Howe out of Newark. You know, he was. I was on this call one day, and he was mentioning that he had a thought in his mind of just doing 67 miles throughout New Jersey for justice. You know, and I told the brother, "Look, man, you ain't gonna be by yourself, man. I'm gonna be right beside you, man."
Right.
So my word was bond. I went out there with him. Started October the 8th through the 16th, and we walked. Started in Mount Clair, went through Newark, and walked through New Brunswick, Princeton, Trenton. Princeton. We went all through 22 different cities, and I ended up with the front banner. You know what I mean? Because it was about civilian review boards having subpoena powers. That was the banner I was holding in the front. So I had to keep the pace with everybody. I had to let everybody look behind me, and I'm like, they're still there. You know? That's the thing. But it was like 9 days of nothing but another rally every day, walking through communities that never had, especially Black folks, even walk through. You know, and never had a protest or rally through. So it was very experienced, and on the highways and byways and through the rain, you know, and it strengthened me not only mentally but physically as well. It gave me time to atone to myself, as well as, you know, thinking about what was behind me in Atlantic City and what I'm going to end up going to when I get back. And I know there's a lot of haters out there thought I was not going to make it. But we pray for them as well, you know. And you know, I tell a lot of people, you know, especially young people, you know, it was a challenge. You know, they challenge walking, you know, hitting people in the face with a pie. They challenge each other, you know, splashing waters at each other. Let's see you challenge each other walking down the street, you know, just getting some fresh air amongst your people, you know. And you know, that's where our young people are, you know. And this is something we do right here. I mean, I've led over almost close to 100 marches in Atlantic City and been arrested, you know, over 37 times for civil disobedience, for housing, for police brutality, for people's rights, and, you know, just letting people be known that we exist here. But this is our only news, Mo. You're giving us our only news.
It seems like it, right?
Ain't nobody else going to print this to get the real story of what's going on in our communities unless we're doing what you're doing right now. But it was very powerful. We haven't had people that's with crutches, you know, white, Black, and some sisters that kept up with the Hispanic community, the Latino community. I mean, we had them all. And I just want to say a special shout out to my brother with the society page. What's his name? What's the brother name? Yes. He came all the way from Atlantic City, met us in Rawway, and followed us and marched with us. And everybody was saying, well, who's that news over there? I said proudly, they're from Atlantic City. And the brother, you know, he actually got the real story on the front line of what was going on. He interviewed everybody that was there. And that was a very powerful moment of having our news, because we don't have no Channel 2, Channel 97, Channel 4 news. We don't really have a newspaper. So the only story we're going to have to do is like you're doing now. So I'm really proud to be part of that walk. And, you know, the one thing about marching, a lot of people say, well, why are we still marching? Well, when we stop marching, look what happened to our legislation. See, we demonstrate, we negotiate, and then we legislate.
Right.
When we stopped marching, they kept everything back. They held back the George Ford bill in Congress and the Senate in Washington. They held back the John Lewis bill about our voting rights. They said, okay, you stop moving, we're going to stop moving. Demand it.
Right.
You want it, you demand it. Same thing with the Civilian Advisory Board and everything else when it comes to the 13th Amendment. They stopped voting for it because we stopped going in the street. When we started demanding it and knocking on their doors, we started getting things done. So marching is very important, and we have to march and sometimes knock on some doors. And, you know, we've done that in Atlantic City a few times, and we'll continue to do so to get our point across.
Absolutely. As a welcome my brother Adrian. He's the co-host. Adrian, what's up, man? How are you? Good afternoon. Good evening.
Long week, man. Long week. What's going on, Steve?
You doing, soldier? Salute to you, man.
What's going on, brother?
Yes, sir.
So
Good
we
to hear
just
from
Steve was just giving us a little bit of insight. He just did a long march about different topics when it comes to justice and social awareness about what was going on. He was giving us a little update of some of the experience. So it's just again showing us that my man's not only talk. He puts his feet up on the ground. He put 10 toes in. He puts his effort. He puts the money where his mouth is. He don't just talk a good game. He acts it. He does his thing. So really appreciative to have him in physical form and also leading us in the realms that he does, man. So I think sometimes, Steve, unfortunately, it's the reality is some people are very uncomfortable with blackness. They're very uncomfortable in a world where white supremacy has had so much dominance. When you see an individual who's proud to be black and supportive of black things, and this is not to go against anything white, but being very supportive of those things that are pro-black. They look at like to you sometimes as a threat. That's why I look at you as an asset. You're my brother, my soldier, my comrade, because we have to put in the fight. While some people are docile and a bunch of cowards and parasitic in the background, eating and preying on their communities, we have to keep on fighting to protect and preserve the community that we have. What little we have is because people before us gave everything and sometimes gave their lives so we can have it. So I have a lot of respect and appreciation for what you continue to do.
But I'm glad you mentioned that because one thing we've noticed, and you go through it so much, brother. I mean, we on the front line. You on the front line feeding people out there in the community, talking to people with our youth and everything. And here it is, the ones that's not on the front line be the first ones at the table eating the crumbs and thinking they getting something. So they falling for the Kool-Aid and smell of the bread that don't not even getting the crumbs of the bread, and they think they have something. But it's a shame we on the front line to set the stage and saying we're here, and here's a program, and here's things that gonna make our community better. But yet they don't want no inclusion with the people on the front line, and that must end. And those who sell us out and and go there without us, we must start checking them and letting them know this is not the way things should be done. This is not a human thing to do, and self-preservation is the first law of nature.
Right.
So we have to look out for ourselves first. Even a dog look after their pups. Right. A cat looks after its kittens. So why shouldn't we as Black people look after our children and our community?
Absolutely, man. It's in my experience, it's sad, but it's always in search of the dollar. It seems that our children and our families and our women seem to be what we seem to sacrifice more easily. And that's so disturbing because it demonstrates how we've devolved as a community, in my opinion. It's not to say that we're so lost. I'm never going to write off my folks because I think we still have potential to become even greater. We're great, and we haven't even touched a small percentile, small iota of how great we can be as a community. And as universal brothers and sisters out in this world, how much we could be that much better if we allowed ourselves to stop getting in our way and stop becoming a problem the way we are. I know recently, this is just to cut to the chase. Recently, we've been facing these issues in politics. And as a lot of people have noticed, this past election didn't show so far, and I say this so far because not everything was tabulated, it didn't fall in the favor of the people to have what they selected. I know my name was part of a few who put our names out there to be selected or being as candidates for mayor, and we just the numbers did not show in our favor, so it continues on with the same mayor that we've had in the past. So the same mayor has also been involved in quite a few issues or concerns in our community, specifically the Board of Education. His home, his domicile, has been alleged to have been a home base to what may have been some sexual perversions with children or activities including children that were considered illegal and or dangerous to children. And we're still questioning the ethical value, the moral value of riding on that pony and void of the moral obligation that we should be having to putting him to the test and putting them to the test and getting final answers of what actually happened. And are we going to have some solutions for these kids and some support system for these children who have been victims?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up first, right? You know, I'm
Going
ready to break it down. Listen, man, we have a mayor in this. Y'all have a mayor in this town.
Right, it's our town, so it's our mayor.
That
right.
Don't want to be a mayor, but wants to be a king,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and a queen of a colony, like the Queen Elizabeth and King Charles, and in England. And we don't have that type of democracy here where you feel like you're untouchable, or because you have a puppet master governor that's going to carry out his bidding towards keeping us divided as a Black community. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what's going on in the name of politics and economics. Mm-hmm. We have not economically have received what we should have received years ago. For someone that's been in office as long as he have and ran for office as mayor, I don't know how many times, and has lost and won by this little percentage of the people that actually live here. We have a population of over 35,000 people. So if you win by 3,000 or even 5,000 people, do that make you the majority of a representation of the people? And then when it comes to small, it's sickening what happened to the children at his home. It's not allegedly no more, because his cousin Kanye Frazier actually admitted to the federal government that these acts happened while he was working under his cousin LaQuetta Small, who's the principal of Pennsylvania Avenue School. And these acts of going in bathrooms and going in libraries and different things and sexually abusing we don't know how many children. Right. And then after he was caught and she made a statement, and this is nothing as alleged, it's in writing, her writing, that she asked the mother, well, did you know that he was sleeping with your son? Well, if you knew this, and you asking the mother this, how did you know? But you don't report that to law enforcement. Right. Instead, you let him continue to work in 5 to 6 more schools after leaving Pennsylvania Avenue. That means, and we are a very diverse community, that means thousands of children in our community he had contact with, and we don't know how many, that he took videos of and sent worldwide all the way to China on his cell phone and on his computer of different acts of doing with children. So this is a very disturbing thing when you have someone who's supposed to be a leader, right, such as the mayor, that's supposed to be looking over our children, and children been over his house. And he's a football fan. He loved the Eagles. So all his fans that come over there and bring their children over there, while this man was in that house, they need to talk to their children. I know he's your friend, and I know he's been probably get you a job and hooked you up.
Right, the benefactor.
What happened to your child?
Right.
What's going to happen to our future because of it wasn't reported, and it's been like a cover up for all these years. And no, I want to get to another point. See, we got to look at how this was happening. Mo, you was right there. That's why I'm glad you brought it up. You remember the time at the Lang City Board of Education meeting when they wanted to remove the principal there, right, and replace LaQuetta Small from Pennsylvania Avenue School to the high school. And we were wondering what is going on? What's the hurry of moving up on principal that's already there, that worked her way up through the ranks, not by favoritism and who you know and all that, worked their way up to be the principal of the high school. And then you put LaQuetta Small there. And while she was there, and I remember that was when he said it was racist. What do he know about racism? What do Monty Small know about racism? Have not been in the streets standing up for not one child, not one fighting, no, not one struggle for our black community. And you're going to say, call people in Galloway racist? A racist is one that carries out the act of racism.
Right.
He carried out more racist acts in the black community towards us as black people than anybody, all the white people in Galloway and Atlantic City put together.
That's true.
On the backs of getting paid and through the governor having him be the puppet for him. So this is reality of what's going on, and this is a shame that is going on, and it must stop. And we've been asking at the board meeting, and there's a board meeting coming up on, I believe, the 17th, which is Tuesday.
Right. Third Tuesday.
We want everybody to come out and voice your opinion, because as we walk the street, they did not know that they was trying to make her superintendent and give her a raise at the time when she's got a lawsuit against a federal lawsuit against them from the parents and from these children of this child molestation that they knew about. Mm-hmm. This is a shame, outright injustice, outright a sin, and we need to know some answers to it. How many of our children was involved with this, and did they get any help? Why can't we get no answers? Why do people want to support someone? And all those that voted for him, you ought to be ashamed of yourself for voting for a child molester protector that happened to our children, not only through in Atlantic City, but he got a job working for DCPNP, Child and Protective Services, for the state of New Jersey. How do you get a job? I'm sure someone said, we're going to recommend him, or gave him a letter for him to get a state job after abusing our children in the school system. How?
You know there was a letter. Yeah, there was some sort of
the governor signed off on it. And if the governor didn't sign off, he wasn't the governor, then he has an obligation as a governor to find out what happened in this agency of DCPNP, the state agency, to our children, so it would not happen again. So we've been asking the Attorney General's office, the governor, the city council, the mayor, somebody say something. But the faith-based community, I don't know how they can stand by and say they're religious and believe in God to protect our women, children, and elderly, and sit back and don't make a comment or anything about our children. Sometimes silence is betrayal. And it's been like a betrayal in this community toward what happened to our children. I know I'm going on and on, but Mo,
it's
I
okay.
want to children here.
It's all right, because
you got to let people know.
This is your chance to speak, however it is. Trust me, we're not limited to a half hour. We're gonna ride for 3 hours long. So if you got time to speak, we got time to listen.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for, man. There's a lot of knowledge out there.
It's all good. When it comes to justice, it's always the proper thing for us to give it the room that it needs and the air to breathe. One of the things that was recently exemplified even more so in this whole discussion was, and it falls back to a film that I remember watching some years ago, with Matthew McConaughey being a white lawyer protecting a black man, which is Samuel L. Jackson, in his potential death sentence. And he proposed something that was very profound. And it's the same situation in this situation. And it was stated, what if Laquetta was a white woman and Kanye was a white man? How would the black community feel then? And this was proposed by African-American female who just made it out the blue. And I thought to myself, that's a profound statement. Because in reality, it puts us in check. Like, yo, what are we looking at? You know, when we have this defense mechanism that's always very sensitive for race or concerns of race, why isn't the same concern about harm to our children just as easily sensitive?
Well, I want to answer that question because that's ideal.
Right,
in Atlantic City, the way the people been deaf, dumb, and blind, and it showed the way they voted, they still wouldn't have done nothing. And I challenge everybody on that issue, because we've been on the front line in these streets for years. There's a lot of people didn't join us, but talked about us and just press like or unlike and go in their home when their children talk about how we're standing up and get envy and jealous and say, "Oh, he ain't nothing. He ain't doing nothing." But we out there standing up for them and their future. So reality part, where are they? They need to wake up, stay woke, and do something. Because when we come to those meetings, at the Board of Education meetings, I've been consistently there, and on a lot of issues, I don't see the parents. It's about sports. It's about the education, the curriculum. It's about the funding and money. I mean, and here it is. They only come to the sports events. But when it comes to the education and the curriculum and the economics of this community, they're not there. Something's wrong with the mentality of a people like that. And we understand that. And that's why we have to continue to do our part. And don't hate us for doing our part. It's something for you to do. If you don't want to be out there, bring some water to the meeting. If you ain't man enough to be out there, make a flyer, draw something. If you ain't man enough to be out there, get on social media and say something about what's going on. But to sit back and do nothing at all and be quiet and go home and pray and make salat, and I'm talking about the Muslims too. I have to really let it out that the truth is the light, and it's going to set you free. So we have to understand that, it's called tough love, everybody, and we're going to give some tough talk and tough love to each other, because we didn't get this way by not making mistakes. But when you make a mistakes, you learn from that and you grow. And I'm one made a lot of mistakes. I guess I know so much because I learned from it.
Right.
And I'm going to make a lot more.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, we're not perfect people, and you're not a perfect individual, but you're striving to be upright to meet with your maker. What's wrong with that? Mm-hmm. And we need to be more strong in our faith, man. Not faith in having a job, not faith in just making money, because all that, and look at the condition of our community and our world. If it's all about money and money's supposed to save us, look at our conditions: housing, crime. Do our youth really see a future? I mean, do we really see a future after what we've done and as much as we struggle through? That's a hard thing to think about and wake up every day. But you're working like a slave every day for a job. And then at the end of that retirement, you're saying, what did I do with all that money? Millions of dollars out of 20 years of working like a slave. And you got to ask for your money back in Social Security. You got to apply for it and say, can I have some of my money back after they used it and bombed every people all over the world? Now you got to ask for your money that you work for a slave in America. And same thing with unemployment. You work and you got to apply for it. And they have a nerve to tell you no sometimes. Right. Your money that you put in.
So the insurance that you back, you're self-insuring yourself, right?
System spend the money the way they want. You're gonna let City Hall and government spend the money the way like it's their private bank. This money belongs to the people. This government is supposed to be for the people, by the people. And politicians, you take an oath for that. It's about your people, not about yourself. So if you're not gonna hold up that, then get out the way. If it's just about you making money and want to be a king and queen of Atlantic City and of the country, then you got another thing coming, because we ain't seen nobody last forever. Nobody. So, like I said, you hit some points, man. I'm going to hit it.
Well, you know what? I think it's just discussions that we had, because we were just in a election cycle, and there's so much hope and emphasis being had in election cycles. And it just proves to show you we go all hard and go all or for nothing in specific elections, but we don't put in that same energy all around for other things where we really can affect change. Where people are in numbers the way they are, and we'll mention how things have gone recently. In the city, we saw armies of individuals dressed in red clothing that you wouldn't necessarily see out actively in a school setting other than a sports game. You won't see them at a school board meeting. You won't see them in an uprising about something that transpired at a school. You won't see them in a police shooting that took place. You won't see them jumping in front of an intervention between kids or a situation in the communities. You won't see them. but they were an army. I'll use that term for lack of a better term. There's a lot of individuals that were dressed in red to push one person above all, and that person doesn't put in a percentile of the same effort for the community. And it just shows you. We talked about what's important, and I think the value system that Elaine City has for its people and its children shows on how dysfunctional we have become, or we've devolved. Our value system is more so how much money, how much physical money that we can have or bring in versus the return that we can have on human beings and by investing in the human beings. We're not spending the amount, the school board, the issues of the school board, they're not spending the money on the education, they're spending on the money on contracts. Right. They're not spending on books and better laptops and internet connections in homes that don't have internet connection. They're trying to make sure their boys and their friends and their political allies are getting these multi-million-dollar contracts. And that's what school boards have devolved into, just like city council. And this has been an argument for me, I think, for the entire year that I have. And I've said no to all these legal contracts because there's lawyers making hundreds of millions of dollars of small municipalities like our own as a payback for political donations here and there. And that it's eating away to the fabric that we can probably feed from better in our community. Small little initiatives to help make sure the potholes are filled can be covered if we stop paying this law firm and that law firm for redundant information that we already have, or an evaluation that seems to get done. There's always something, or not paying for an investigation when it should have been done, so you'll get a decisive answer where the areas who are at fault, and then you can better address it. We just don't make sense. We're worried about dollars, but we're not making sense.
Well, one thing about it, it's voter education, voter education, voter education. Mm-hmm. Because how many? I'm not going to be nice about it.
Okay.
How many irresponsible fools just vote on election day and don't hold nobody accountable for what's on the ballot that they voted for? Mm-hmm. See, that's an irresponsible voter, because your responsibility starts the day they get sworn in and the day they take that oath. You're supposed to hold them accountable. And accountable means if they don't know, if there's a law that's in existence, they're supposed to be carrying it out as a public official, as a legislator. Your job as a responsible voter is to say, listen, when we going to get this $500 check that you was promised through the American CARES Act?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to go there?
Yeah.
Is that part of going to be the legal municipality party that he having?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? He's having a party.
He's going to try to go head-to-head with Ras Baraka, I know.
For $200 for bottles, $300 for bottles, like it's a sex club. Everybody coming to Atlantic City, and you saying you welcome them here, having bottles of champagne when we're suffering here, and people still under minimum wage, and we haven't got our CARES Act money of $500 as property owners. But you're gonna party off that money. You're gonna go. You went to Atlanta to watch the Eagles play. The mayor did. Watch them play while people was waiting for their money, their $3,500 that he had promised it to them, and these fools still voted for him. They need to check themselves and say, listen, let me let me wake up. And I hope that they listening so they can wake up today and do something with when they wake up. And you're right, it's really irresponsible. And we see a lot of pay to play, man. It's a shame. And that people look the other way. How can you play? And this happened in 2019. The acting police chief, Sarkos,
there we go.
Paid $75,000 to the mayor of Atlantic City. Had a press conference about it. Mm-hmm. Say, here, this is for your youth program, Evolution or whatever, and gave him that so he could become acting chief. He was a deputy chief then, and then all of a sudden he pops up being chief of police, and we're looking like, how did that happen? He bought the vote. He bought the mayor, and it must be the governor too, because the governor didn't say, no, you can't do that, for a white person, and his name is Sarkos, The acting deputy chief or acting chief now, Sarkos, gave through the Atlantic City Police Foundation, which was supposed to be a nonprofit, gave the mayor $75,000 check so he can become the mayor. Now, prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, then check me and let me know. But usually, if you give somebody some money and you got to get a favor for your own to increase your income, that's pay to play.
But here's the other part to it. Remember where that money came from? That was CRDA money. That's right. That gave to the police department, police association, working for initiatives to help the community, and through them for policing, for additional funds for these class 2 officers policing. So CRDA money gave it to police department so he can give to the city so he can become chief, and the initiatives go on that way. Well,
how about the time when the mayor got caught a few years ago, meeting with CRDA, saying that he wants to do his Marty Party personal ball in the boardwalk near the Boardwalk Hall, the Welling Center on the boardwalk. They had to say, look, that's a conflict of interest. You sit on the board, and then you're asking us to give you a favor to have a party, and most of the people that come to his party don't live here anyway.
Right.
You know, it's really sad that he's partying while we are struggling.
You know one thing that I recognize. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the one thing I recognize, which is sad, is that his ideology, his mentality is demonstrative of people in his age bracket. They're more driven to have a good time and party than to exert themselves for the greater good of the general public. Not to say everybody, because there's some stars out here who are shining, but I see that amongst his followers. There's that same group thought process. These young folks that are so they're self-indulging. They have a tendency of being complacent about the elders, us. They want to point fingers at us and get angry with us about what we haven't done for them, and they would want to be rebellious in such a way that they're even willing to rebel against some progress. They're willing to put their arms in hand to things that are destructive, even to the point where self-destructive. But they don't care as long as they're rebelling against us, the older folks. And it's a shame because it shows ageism. It shows another dysfunction against our community. Shows a lack of respect for one another. It shows that we don't necessarily have the same goals and moral fortitude as we would assume we should have. We don't have it. We don't share the same thing. So you see that the divide is getting larger, man. It's really sad.
But you're right. But all this has been designed in Atlantic City for years. Let's look at it this way. That's why they took away the informational highway. We had a radio station, a black radio station. Now you got to shut that down. They getting too much information out every day. We can't have no talk shows like that every day. And then we had our newspaper. We had at least Channel 2. Now Channel 2, they changed to 97, and it's supposed to be a public broadcasting station for us in Atlantic City. How many times have they showed Atlantic City council meetings, and it's on Zoom? How many times have they showed the board meeting, and the cameras are right there in the school?
None.
So that's designed so we won't get the information out, or you won't see exactly what they don't want to be transparent, so they can continue to rob and be bloodsuckers of the poor people that live here in Atlantic City.
And here's the other part. Because they utilize these internet-based functions like Zoom, they're able to control who comes on and says things. They control the microphone. They control access versus no access. They control all these things in addition to controlling whether it gets out to the general public or it doesn't. So that's why it's preferred. And this is one of the issues that I had in the very, 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 very beginning of this past year, or when the pandemic started, how the council president at that time chose to go that realm, and we kept saying we can have multiple meetings, and then as time goes on, we were doing better with that epidemic. We should start going back to being public. We were very adamant about doing this stuff, and the council president wanted to continue doing this. So much so that it became a problem because we saw the trend. As much as being said as there was only one meeting per month, the excuse was had for these emergency meetings. Well, we only have one meeting. We had to rush. No, if you had an entire month to prepare something, so everything should have been prepared at that point in time. And if it wasn't ready, then we should go back to this bi-weekly meeting setting so people have the chance to hear everything and then give them access to the general public. Let's be it in person. And they were also having meetings anyway. Every time we turn around, there was some sort of gathering, public forum to encourage people to get property, to get involved and buy loans and all this stuff about empowerment with the lack of real options for people to make money to be able to buy properties. But he was having these sessions in the council chambers, and there wasn't no masks, no 6 feet distance and a whole nine. But no, God forbid you have to do that for government meetings. Wow.
And the hypocritical part of it, they wouldn't have got there if it wasn't for the people. And they don't want to be transparent. And here it is. Look what they tried to do to me. Try to get me off a volunteer board, having special meetings to remove me off a planning board and the civilian advisory board without a pay, and with me volunteering for over 10 years.
Right.
That is very hypocritical for any government entity to try to remove a public servant that's serving the people, not just talking about it, serving the people with their time, free time, and you're going to try to remove them and have special meetings to remove them. But you can't have a special meeting to tell us about what happened to our children and how you feel about it, to ask for an investigation of what happened to our children in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
You're not having a meeting to talk about how we should show and be transparent and have these meetings go public. See, there's solutions to this, and it has to be the people. It's the government is for the people, by the people, then the people must stand up and make them accountable to doing these things. And the first and number one thing, it should be just transparency of what's going on with our children. And if that includes having a special meeting or a town hall, now why they haven't had no town hall meeting? You can have a town hall meeting by Zoom. Now, why haven't you had one? Because they cannot. They don't want to keep the people deaf, dumb, and blind asleep. And they don't want to be held accountable to doing something that's right. So they're very sinful. And no one man, such as a council president, should be dictating to the entire community with over close to $200 million budget to say when the meeting's going to be, when it's not going to be, who can talk at the meeting and who can't. Because many times he disrespected LaToya Dunston, who's the only councilwoman to sit up there, a black woman, this white man, and he's going to say he's not racist. He don't know what racists look like. It's when he disrespect that black woman for standing up for black children in our community and going to cut her off and say no and disrespect her. See, we have a problem with that. But how many men stood up and say, no, you will not. No, you will not do that to our black woman, because you do it to her, you're doing it at home, and you're doing it in our community, and we're not going to stand for it. But you elected, they re-elected that person on 3 terms.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say re-elected because this one, but without being said, stolen and everything. But
stolen, right? You're right.
I must say one thing that I have to acknowledge, and this is something that it's mixed feelings about it. My colleague Jeff Fauntleroy, which was at one point in time I thought he was a good friend of mine, stood up and he basically came at George or council president to say, "Yo, watch your tone." And I was very proud of him for stepping up the way he was as a young man, because he wasn't having it at that time, looking to be, very distant. And he's mentioned quite often, quite a lot, about being against how his whole mantra is with the community and how stifling he is, how counterproductive he's been. To see him at the elections with his hands up, like, if you can't beat him, join him, rocking the red and this whole squad type stuff. If I found it in such a disappointing situation, but I was like, okay, what else is new, I guess. But he stood up to defend LaToya. I will say that.
Yeah,
I'll
but
give him that credit. Yeah.
That's the other part about accountability, though. What I mean? At the same time. I mean, really, people need to be asked that question. Why would you, what's your reason and your purpose to go with a child molester protector? I don't understand that. You walking through the community with red on, with a child molester protector, uh, having him get back in office. There's no excuse for that. I just go beyond that. I can't get past nobody supporting somebody that's protecting somebody who abused our children in our community.
Right.
We don't know how many. And it's still going on today. That can be the child that raped your daughter or raped your child because mentally they didn't get no help. That's all we're trying to say. The process wasn't done right. Make sure it's done right the next time. Correct the problem. See, and there's solutions to it. But it has to start with transparency and not supporting the ones that's been hurting our children. But this is definitely going to be something after they gone, and after they ain't making no dime anymore. They're going to disappear.
Right.
I've seen more mayors, and more council people, and more politicians in Atlantic City. They either go to jail or they end up unemployed with nothing. And the people that they supposed to be support them the most don't even give them an offer of a job. Not even an offer of a job. Now that something's wrong with that picture. You help them be bloodsuckers of the poor, white folks making millions of dollars in contracts. They won't even help you with a job, let alone a business to sustain you or your family, but you took care of theirs for a lifetime. Something wrong with that picture.
Man, if people were to look at the picture, you'll see how one side, how lopsided it is. But again, it's the dysfunction of people thinking that it's the way it need to be because he's the king, that he can do what he wants, and hopefully he can break off a little piece for me, throw me a little something, and then everything will be good. Not recognizing that what he's doing is further keeping us off balance, and we'll never get justice for ourselves because the land of the hookup is what's been a problem in our community continuously. We're always looking for a hookup instead of a hand up. And that hookup tendency has a problem because just as for people who may be watching, you're not looking at it from the concepts that it is. If you're looking at just an X amount of money, you only have $7. Say you only have $7. You have 3 people who are looking for money. And one person's like, yo, hook me up, hook me up, hook me up. And you said, all right, I'm going to hook you up. I'll give you $4. All right. Then you have $3 to basically share with the rest. So you've brought an unbalanced situation. And then after a while, once you adjust, you think that's the way to be. And then the next stage will be further depleting what's left for those who are getting very little anyway. So it makes everything one-sided, like in the police department. The police department some years ago created this wonderful system to benefit themselves and really made this whole pay system one-sided, so heavy that where you saw these boat checks, infamous boat checks that were coming out of the city police departments, police working 10 years and never calling out, never having a sick day, nothing. And you see these amazing payouts at the end because of this system. And it was about negotiations. And I give it to you. I ain't gonna knock the gangster in the game because the game is understanding what you do when you're negotiating. That's why we're in a different disposition. That's why they have negotiations. So their unions negotiated really well, but at the end, who pays for it? You and I, as far as taxpayers concerned. Right. We're not getting what we deserve because of the hookup. And this hookup further continues now, where this mayor is surrounded by an excess, I think it's around maybe 12 people total. Everyone is making over 70,000. Of those 12 people, maybe less than 4 people have had a long-term record of working in their field. The rest of them are new to working at city government. Some of them are working in arenas where they would never have gotten it because one is unfortunately their past is in the way. And because of their past depictions that they can't work in certain atmospheres. Now they're granted all this money and given this responsibility and titles. So this also, it again makes this whole process unbalanced. So you got people who've been working 30 years who've never seen a significant raise in their pay. And all of a sudden, one person just comes in off the streets, don't know how to work in the atmosphere, in a professional atmosphere, comes in making 40% more money than that person. It's really unfair and it's unbalanced. So it makes it really bad because the land of the hookup is doing nothing but tightening the noose upon our own communities.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Here's a temporary mayor, Marty Small, gets into office, and the first thing the governor does it gives him a what 30% raise increase
Yeah.
without being a full-time mayor and had to run 3 more times. Now, what did he do, or what do they have in collusion with or covering up that he gives him a raise, endorses him, sponsors him, and let him do all these things to the Black community,
right,
and get away with it?
Let me
you really
suggest,
have to look at the puppeteer.
Let me suggest, because if you remember correctly, if I remember correctly, one of the first initiatives that he used in executive order was to open the city to short-term rentals. It's the first executive order he'd come out. There was the first to open up the city to short-term rentals. For those who may not know, those are Airbnbs. In a city that has hundreds of Airbnbs that are not registered to the state or the city, but he opened up on the executive decision to open up to Airbnbs to come into our town, which this is an allegation that he may be included or involved in these businesses that are considered LLCs who own the Airbnbs. But from my understanding, there's a potential that a lot of these businesses that also include some of these officials at the high level who just recently got spanked and taken out of their offices.
You know, Mo,
also,
look, you know, the thing, I listened to both of you guys, you know, and Steve, I heard you mention Larry Ham. You know, I'm totally familiar with Larry. You know what I'm saying? That being a protester, you know, the whole 9 yards from Newark, New Jersey, you know, on open line WBLS on Sundays. Yeah. I listened to Larry. I'm totally familiar with Larry and the other brothers in the whole 9 yards. One. Second of all, I commend you on what you've done for the community. There's no doubt about it. You've stepped up in many ways but loose. You know what I'm saying? And get things done. You know, but I've also said to Mo, you know, a body at rest stays at rest. A body in motion stays in motion. We all know this. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, you know, when the weather gets bad, and I've noticed this also, a lot of people don't bother to come out to vote because it says, you know, the weather is bad. And every time you see that the weather is bad, you see the people who you're trying to get out of office remains in office because a lot of people won't get out there and represent to actually vote the right way. You know, so then they become a victim. You can't blame it on the system. You have to blame it on a group of people that just refuse to go out and vote. So you end up with the same nonsense, the same day, in a different way. That's all there is to it that keeps these guys in office. You know, Atlantic City is known. Come on, guys. Atlantic City has been known for corruption. There's nothing new there under that sun. You know this. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's what gets to me because everything that you're saying is definitely true. There's no doubt about it. And the people who are listening and watching, they know it's true. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to do anything about it until it's all done and over with. And then it says, hey, what have we done around here? They haven't done anything because they never got out and vote. Because like it says, you vote, you know, the government was made up by the people, for the people. But at many times, you know, the people let the government get off the hook. You spoke about, you know, Social Security. You spoke about unemployment. You know, a lot of these are social programs that came up, you know, after the first Great Depression, you know, in the 1930s. That's when a lot of these programs were created. Jobs were created. You know, look at the Democrats. A lot of these guys lost their pants, you know, in the general election. Then there's going to be the midterm election. Look at Murphy. Murphy is still scared witless based on what happened. Look what happened to Sweeney. Sweeney was swept up by a damn truck driver, and the same truck driver had racial, you know, posting on his Facebook when underneath the radar, you know, he said he spent about $150 plus 10 grand, you know, to win, you know, Sweeney's position. You know, Sweeney's been up there for 10 years. They took over the city of Atlantic City. The state took over the city of Atlantic City, started running Atlantic City, and the mayor just ended up being a puppet of the freaking state. Where is it wrong here? You know what I'm saying? It's wrong all the way around. That's what's happening. Yeah. You know, but then it goes back to corruption. Look at Michael Matthews many years ago. He tried to sell the city of Atlantic City. Look what happened to Jim Usher many years ago. And I can keep going back and back. You know, the mob used to run Atlantic City at one time. We all know this. You know, when casino gambling first came in, the federal government, you know, FBI and these guys were trying to get the freaking mob out of Atlantic City. But then the mob started building the casinos, okay, with a lot of contracts there. You see what I'm saying? So where the corruption is going on, it's amazing because It seemed like the people, like, okay, we're not going to make much of a difference, so we don't bother to vote. All of these things. Because I hear it also from Pleasantville. The guys on the school board in Pleasantville, I hear the same echoing, things coming up out of those guys. They want to change things in the contracts. I spoke heavily with the president and these guys over there in Pleasantville during this last election. So I see what's going on in Atlantic City, and I see what's going on in Pleasantville also. The two main Democratic strongholds here on the East Coast.
And let's talk about that party system. You got the Republican Party, you got the Democratic Party, you got the Marty Party, you got the small party. You got the Black Panther Party, but most of them been doing nothing but partying on black people. On the economic of us being the biggest consumers on earth.
Remember, black people invented the parties. You know what I'm saying? And they still partying on after it's done and over. But come on, brother, where's the strange of the game here? Black people invented parties. We know the party.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So everybody goes along as long as that. Even my girl says, well, Adrian, he's going to win another term because, he tends to have parties and stuff, and everybody familiar with the Marty Small Ball. You know what I'm saying? And the majority of the times, the advertisement for these things are not being held locally. It's freaking in New York and Philadelphia. I know it because I hear it on the radio station from those guys up there. Mm-hmm. So, and you mentioned also about, the lack of information in this area. Of course, that's the only way that you can keep people down, dumb, deaf, and stupid is to just, usurp all of the information from the community, and then people get to know nothing that's really happening.
Yep.
You don't hear a lot from me, out there, but I just like myself, a lot of people see what's going on here.
You're definitely doing your part, brother. We proud
a lot of people do pay attention to going on. You see what I'm saying? So don't let it fool you. Of course, the stuff, with, Marty Small's wife, becoming, a superintendent of public school, how they actually rush, and then they turn around and actually says, hey, look, I think we may have been rushing the situation here to get her there, because they were actually afraid that if anything would have came down, that if he would have lost the election, then everything, the dynamics and the narrative would have changed. And that's the reason why they wanted to rush it like that. But then once he won, they're like, phew. Just the same thing like with Murphy. Murphy lost like a truck driver. Murphy lost to a freaking truck, not Murphy, but Sweeney lost to a truck driver. Sweeney was like bitterly in tears because he never thought that would ever happen to him. But that's what happens when you become complacent. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, it's going to creep up on your ass and take you out. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. And a lot of other, around here, a lot of the Republicans, went right up in office, and they were happy as hell because they're like, this Democratic stuff just ain't freaking working. That's why I've always said a third party that represents the people is something that's really needed, because this two-party system bullshit doesn't work. That's just the bottom line. This is the I've stated that many times. I've said something to Mo, when Andrew Yang was saying, hey, we need a third party. We need something going on over here.
Let me give you some insight just in case you may not be aware for the folks that are watching. My brother Steve Young has been very active in the Democratic Party, trying to align them to remember Atlantic City's importance in the greater dynamics of politics. Even much so where him and I have been in Congress with other Democrats to try to make sure to utilize certain powers that be by our presence or lack thereof to make sure things were happening. So much so that he had to step away from the Democratic chair because of their politricks and games that we playing, specifically Mike Suleiman and his racist behaviors and his inactivity and his politricks and being involved, being a puppeteer and trying to be a puppeteer, but nothing but a failed puppet. That's why he got his ass handed to him so well. And he in all this apologetically, but never stepping down as he should because he's a failed leader in the Democratic Party. But I'm no longer a Democrat, so there's no worry about me. Right. But I just want to make sure that people understood as a Democrat, he's been arduously trying to represent the city at the county level where a lot of discussions are made. And it's sad because the city Democratic Party supposed to have the power of the people. But this time in this situation, they weren't even heard. They weren't even given opportunities. Why? Because they were allegedly aligned with Craig Calloway. This is the same individual who has been part of every election, apparently for Republicans and Democrats, for the last 15, 20 years. And if you win, then he's an asset. But if you lose to him, oh my God, he's the monster. And the way the whole situation is, it's the same old games being played. but it's the same factors. We don't have the representation, nor do we have the balls when we have people representing to make decisions and really stand up for the people. And that's what makes it very difficult. When we go to these conventions, the county conventions, right? We see a lot of us people of color. And it's not about a color issue, it's about what's just. And they propose these leaders that they want us to select. They're always coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
They get co-signed from somewhere else. They don't represent us. They don't know our towns, don't know our issues, nothing about us, but they're basically handed to us so we can co-sign and say, yeah, we support them. It was the most disturbing sign of democracy that I have ever been a part of, and it's been appalling for years, but it's still the same old substance that really chokes us as a community because we're not able to represent ourselves. And then the minute we have some viable representation, oh no, you guys are a little bit beyond your britches. Let's remind you who you are. The Democratic Party, the selections are only done by the county. Come on, man, this is the same old nonsense. That's why I'm still in alignment with how a majority of municipalities in the state want to get rid of county municipalities. And in doing so, you can get rid of county Democratic parties or Republican parties, partisanship from the county level. You don't need it. Let the municipalities run themselves and how they want to.
And you're right, because the Democratic Party, let's keep it real, has mostly been using the Black community and figured they was entitled to it for getting a job or a minimum wage job to sustain themselves. And it's a shame, like you said, the Democratic Party, I was on the executive committee for years of the county, which have over 200,000 people that they represent. And here of the Democratic Party, and here it is, if they always pick a chairman of that party to dictate Atlantic City and Pleasantville, we have the majority of the Democrats in, and have the majority of the votes for the entire county, but they dictate to them who's going to be their mayor during this partisan election. But and when they say who's going to be the mayor, they say, well, this is the person that's going to get the line. This who we pick, not the city committee pick, this who we pick, because we're the puppeteers and we don't vote in Atlantic City, but we control Atlantic City because we're bloodsuckers of you, and y'all going to be our slaves, and we're going to put some house there because the ones in the field will hold us accountable. So therefore, we're going to put that house in there so he can carry out our bidding towards our contracts throughout the entire county. And that has been exposed because some people woke up and say, you keep taking us for granted too long, and we're not going to have to vote as a Democrat. We're going to vote for the people that have our best interest of our community. And the Black vote is very important. So they either came out and vote or didn't vote for the Democrats. Now that's a wake-up call for the governor and for the Republicans, because this shows we have power in voting. Now it's what we asked for, though. What are we going to ask for? A job for our wives?
The first thing, Steve, we have to show up to vote. That's the first objective right there. We have to show up in numbers, because even when it boiled down to it, a lot of these guys are like, wow, we haven't seen anything come up out of Atlantic County as of yet, because that's, that's the thing about it right there. They start sweating when it's coming down to the wire. Remember, many years ago, what was called a great switch occurred when you had the majority of the Black people being all Republicans, and the Republicans wasn't serving the best interest of the Black people, and they switched over to become Democrats. Right. And that's when the Democrats are like, oh, thank God, because, even as we speak right now, the Democrats outnumbers the Republicans in a huge number. Last time I checked, it was 2.5 million people that are Democrats and to 1 million that are Republicans. We outnumber these people, but the fact of the matter, like it says, we become very complacent. We don't show interest in our local community that's happening. I've always mentioned people want to run for school board. There's nothing wrong with that, and run for these positions. But the Democrats will always choose, someone who is non-ethnic, Black or brown, to become governor. That's it, and that's what really matters, because the governor runs the damn state. You know what I'm saying? The governor runs the state, but the Democratic Party will always pick somebody who is non-ethnic to actually become governor. And that's what's going on here. You know, so we fall into the same old okie doke and the same nonsense. But we also want somebody who is black or brown to run the state that has our best interests at heart, not just take us for granted. It's a big difference, because you could end up with like a Clarence Thomas being the freaking guy running for freaking governor of the state of New Jersey. You don't need that.
You scored with that one, because let me bring some light. You know what happens too often is that we play race. Race politics is more prominent than economic politics, or social awareness, or social welfare, or educational. Race economics, it seems to be batting. They're always neck and neck, but the race politics is disgusting how it is. There's always a suggestion that if you have a lot, like myself, naturally you look at me, I'm Latino, but I'm a black man in the whole nine, understanding where my roots are. So there's always a suggestion, well, he's going to speak for Latinos. No, Latinos can speak for their own. I'm going to carry the message for them, like everyone else of color should be also carrying the message. Just like people who are considered African American. If you are carrying a message, you should be able to carry it for yourself. However, there's delegates and everything that should be also conduits of your message, but we all should be carrying, people of color should carrying our messages for one another. And for the sympathy wise, or the empathetic value of it, then Caucasian Americans, who, if you truly care, should also be conduits of that message that are being had by their brothers of color. So, but we have to carry that burden. But I think there's an expectation, which is really sad, because this is generational hate that keeps on perpetuating in even politics and social welfare, because we assume like it's a partition, like it's only a pie, and it's cut into certain sizes. And we're only going to, society suggests we're only going to give this much to African Americans. We're only going to give this much to Latinos. And we're going to make sure that the rest of it goes to the bulk, or the majority population, which are Caucasian Americans. And then everyone else divvies up a little. The bad part about it is that we're not looking at it, that we're allowing it to be cut for us instead of us coming to the table and cutting our own piece. There's enough we can all eat if we all play to the table, instead of letting the system continue the way it's going. It's a system. It's not broken. It works exactly how it's intended to. But if we don't play into it and change the system to make it more equitable for all of us, then it won't ever it'll do anything. And this is the bad part, because Atlantic City demonstrates how a system works only for those who are in power. The same situation that we got going on is the same problem that we had before, when there was more Caucasian Americans and a lot more individuals in power that took the power base of Atlantic City. So those that were depressed and individuals that felt oppressed or disadvantaged individuals fought and did what they could to get in power. Now they're in power, exploiting the same way we were exploited. And we're using the same tools that were used against us to benefit themselves, and not looking at, we should have changed the system to make it better. Right. Even to the point where protection, you have municipal judges that are appointed by the mayor. You have judges in a county that are appointed by elected officials. Don't you think that they also protect their value, their groups of the people who look out for them? So justice is also weighed on the influence when it comes to politics, and it's wrong. So we're talking about politics there. We're talking about also the law enforcement. We talked about it earlier. The influences of politics and the economy weighing into who actually gets justice or law enforcement. It's not about the people. It's about who can benefit from it. And that's what's wrong. It's foul. And now in a situation right now where we have a puppet/puppeteer willing to continue to puppeteer his people in positions of law enforcement, he's going to continue to do that stuff. And his minions thinking, oh shit, he can protect me from being locked up, and he must be the man. So we're definitely going to support him. And this is the image that he's being portrayed or allowed to portray. However, there's a puppeteer who's a lot larger that's probably going to humble his ass really, really big soon, because that's how it always goes. When your head get too damn big, there's always somebody going to humble you.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall. The bigger
exactly.
they are, the harder they fall.
And you're going to see this. Now, I don't know if it's that big head from Egg Harbor Township who was once a senator who ran off before his ass got locked up. I ain't going to mention who he is, but before he got locked up, he stepped down. But his big head self seems to be always empowered and pushing buttons, so on and so forth, trying to smile with his tight ass suits and everything. I swear he looked like a bobblehead with too much emphasis.
But you know the thing about it also, because the guy that's actually going to replace Sweeney, who's a Republican, he actually got up there and he had, stated, if there's anyone out there that I've actually offended or hurt based on my statements that I've posted on Facebook, And Twitter, which he pulled down immediately once he started running because it was so damn racist, was like freaking unreal. He's like, I sincerely apologize. Now they just voted this guy up inside of there, with no problem. So you replace one bad for one worse. You know what I'm saying? It's craziness of Jersey politics. But John Stewart said it best. He says, if you want to see corruption at its finest, you come to New Jersey.
That's right.
We're making a lot of the Jersey, mob movies. It's made in New Jersey. New Jersey has been heavy in the mob and the whole 9 years. Look at Chris Christie. When Chris Christie was running for governor, look what he did. He arrested a whole lot of people in the Democratic Party and says, look, he said, I'm cleaning them out. He never pulled anyone from the Republican Party. It was all Democrats, from up north and all this kind of stuff that he had arrested. And he said, look, I'm cleaning up the place. And I put all these guys in jail. So now you can actually elect me as governor because you see I'm doing the job.
But it's also about economics because the black community, we're the biggest consumers on the planet Earth, but yet we don't own too much of this earth. And they talk about welfare, all the monies and dollars that they take out of our communities, billions of dollars, but don't leave nothing back. Atlantic City is that example. Over 20,000 casino employees alone, less than 5,000 live here. You got teachers, majority don't live here. Housing authority, the majority don't live here. Executive directors, principals. We can go on and on. Is taking this dollar out of our community, but yet look at the condition of our community. And these are but yet developers, the big casinos that come here, they get tax breaks, and that's corporate welfare. So they getting welfare and tax money off us, and then say when we go to them and ask for something, oh well, we don't give, or we gave to your mayor already. And that's why we talk about community benefits agreement, because it ain't about giving to the politicians that have been misspending the money, because the politicians have misspent the money so bad here that we almost went bankrupt, and the state had to take over. And the state hoodwinked and bamboozled Atlantic City. What they said is, okay, you're going to borrow some money from us under the transitional aid to help offset your taxes, because the casinos have challenged your taxes so that you got to pay the casinos back. So what we'll do, we'll give you the money, but if we're going to continue to give you the money, we have to take over Atlantic City under the Municipal Stabilization Recovery Act. So the legislators, the Assembly and the Senate under Sweeney took our sovereignty, where our council people and our mayor's vote don't count, and because it can be vetoed on everything. That means you cannot do nothing, hire, fire, or do anything without the governor's check on it.
Right.
So therefore, these things are happening to us. It's the white puppeteer that's dividing this community and keeping it going that way under the king and queen relationship through the school system as well as through the city. So that's the problem. So we know what the solution is, Governor. How you feel about that's really racism when you take a Black Lives Matter and we want it on a boardwalk and you put it in front of a white strip club, right? And then next thing you know, you remove it and spend $36,000 of our taxpayers' money to remove it when we got all these streets that need repairing. But a street that haven't been used for an entire year, right, that you painted on, and you found out it was illegal to paint on that street, all because you didn't want to listen to Black folks saying we want the world to see the Black Lives Matter in Atlantic City. Now, the governor had control over that. The ones that control the hiring and firing and the jobs, and letting this mayor get away and his wife get away with endangering the welfare of our children and giving them both raises to support them. At the same time, have that cousin work for the state of New Jersey. We have a serious problem, a serious wake-up problem, and we got to do something about it. But this corporate welfare with these casinos and these developers, and look how much the casinos making while we're talking about the small talk. And they keep keeping us distracted. Not us, but other people.
Profits, Steve, record profits. That's what they brag about in the newspaper. They're making record profits. But then the record profits ain't trickling down to Atlantic City.
Exactly.
Atlantic
Look what they did.
Record profits.
It's gambling. And COVID didn't stop nothing. They had online gambling. They didn't
online
stop.
is killing it.
Then they had sports betting. That didn't stop. All these things. Where's the money from these proceeds? It didn't stay here. So the state continues to get this, and then they're supposed to be getting us out of debt. And they taking the money out and not bringing down the debt. Matter of fact, the debt increased so they can keep our sovereignty away from us for another 5 years. After the governor said, no, we're going to give that city back. When he got in office again, before he got in office again, he said, no, we're going to keep Atlantic City. We're not going to let you black folks control nothing. I got my puppet down there. He's doing a good job keeping y'all divided, keeping y'all quiet. So we're going to continue to have this relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's serious.
And that was what presented by Mazzeo, who got his ass handed to him.
Mm. Yep.
I mean, let's keep it real with all the situation. We got to keep it real for what it is. I was trying to find the recording when you had mentioned Steve Sweeney. Steve Sweeney was brought to Atlantic City based on a discussion about going bankrupt because myself. At that time, it was Councilman. It was myself, George, and Frank Gilliam was pushing for the idea for bankruptcy because we knew if we went bankruptcy, the federal government would oversee our debt and manage our debt for us to help us that we can get out of debt within a year or two, based on a long term, like 2 years, we would have been okay. Had professionals come in, judges and everything that worked with debt management and bankruptcy, told us this would be the best, wisest thing. Steve Sweeney seemed to have been alerted of this situation by, at that time, the council president. Council president was who? The person who's mayor now. Right. Brought to the table, told when our meeting was, came and rushed from Trenton to intervene at our meeting. We stopped our meeting to listen to Steve Sweeney, and he told us we shouldn't do it because it would be a hardship for Absecon. It'll be a hardship for Galloway. It'll be a hardship for everyone else except for us. And then after the fact, a vote took place. I still voted for bankruptcy because it was about the federal government. Then the state couldn't intervene because at that point in time, we needed help from the federal government too. Then we wouldn't have had the MISRA Act. We wouldn't have had all this disposition, all this money thrown around. We'd have been managed. The debt issue, the evaluation of the property taxes would have been handled better. They would have probably saw how there was inequities involved in that old proposition and how the Borgata and the rest of these casinos got these super overwhelming amounts of money back and how they were paid back. So the federal government being privy to it through this bankruptcy would have probably put a whole lot of shit in line and would have avoided this leadership puppetry and raping of our city budget and raping of the state monies the way it was. And it was all brought to you by that wonderful person in the city council, in the mayor's office, throwing parties now to this day. Don't you love how he works for us?
The party continues, Mo. The party continues. That's it.
Yeah. But you know what? I said something. It's just funny because I wanted to make mention of this, and I thank you. I don't mean to go long breath, but when you talk about things that I have a lot of history with, I'm like, well, hold up, don't forget this, don't forget that. But I was saying this a little earlier. You know, in this day and age, a lot of terms have been rewritten with other meanings. There's new meanings apparently to everything. Like the discussion of loyalty. Back when we were brought up, loyalty, you understood what loyalty was. Now, that's a gray area. We don't know what loyalty is. There's another discussion that we don't understand. Morality seems to be a gray issue. We don't know what the meaning to that is. However, nowadays you hear goofy, you hear hater, you hear fraud, a lot of words being involved with that have some sort of dual meanings, 3 types of meanings, and it only suits. It's like the drug dealer snitching on the other drug dealer, telling the general public there should be no snitching. It's the same concept. It's the sickness, the dysfunction that we have, using terms to defend bad behavior, using terms to promote bad behavior, because that's what you've been accustomed to know and think is the proper thing to do because you get a hookup from it, or that's the only way you can get it. So you're willing to defend bad behavior, even align the meaning of words that we know mean a certain thing into something else, something totally new. So it's crazy how we're working against this. Not only is policy issues, because we got a lot of problems with broken policies and policies written badly, but it's our own interpersonal dysfunctions that we have. We don't understand one another. Not any longer. We need to go back to the book, whatever book it is, to realign our definitions and understanding of these words with the true meanings of these words, and then maybe we can start again.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because education plays a key role in that.
Absolutely.
And when you have generations and generations, and we had the nerve to hear Mayor Small say that you need to do something, and we're not going to take care of your children. The government don't take care of your children. You need to take care of your own children. Now ask this question. Our children, most of them, go to school. When they go to school, the teachers is controlling the mind of them for 5 and 6 hours a day before they go home and go back in our community. Now, so you have control of the minds of our children, and they end up not being able to read and write when they graduate, and you just push them to the side. These children, when we had Viking Academy right there on Indiana Avenue, like alternative school, it was working, and I'll never forget the parents and the children and some of the teachers at that school, when they wanted to close it down. We marched and we went to that school and that meeting and said, why are you going to move these children in the middle of January, and majority of them getting ready to graduate?
Right.
And then we said, what is the plan? We didn't know nothing about what was going on. Same time and around this time of year, same thing. And this happened at the Indiana Avenue School. The school is a building that the city owns. Now that school been vacant for like almost 10 years since then. They put the children back at the high school and the J wing, J for jail, happened to be for J for jail, in the J wing of the school, and told them, you cannot go past these barricades and you stay in that side of this $1 million school we have here. So that didn't work. So then they moved them and pushed them out the Mays Landing.
Yep.
So they stay out there. Now all of a sudden it comes up, all the children that was expelled or in alternative school, and who was the principal at the high school when most of these children got put out of school? LaQuetta Small, right? For this year, right? So she puts them out of school. Now they're talking about going to Galloway. Galloway, when we found out about Galloway, it was the other day that they had a plan from the Board of Education to have a program that's be out that miles further than Mays Landing, almost 25 miles away. So then when people in the community out there in Galloway, they speak about it. Here's the mayor got the nerve to say they racist. But you push the black children way out there, you move them from this school to that school, and you creating the atmosphere of hate. When you're no activist, you're not even a politician as mayor. And you're going to talk about, if anybody know what racism look like, it's Steve Young, because I'm out there and I see it every day, and I know how to challenge it one way or another. But for him to say a racist, why is the only time you saying the racist when it comes to your wife? When it came to going against the Hispanic community, for her to be the principal, it's racism, it's racism. Now it's racism now, because in order for your wife to get the job as superintendent and to move Barry Caldwell out the way, it's rumored that he would be the principal or the director at that school that they built. Now, why didn't you tell the community and the taxpayers what you was doing with our money? Why didn't you tell the taxpayers what was going on with our education of our children? But yet we had to find out about it. And thank Linda Cohen for this. Doing investigative reporting was right there at that meeting so everybody can see. But for the mayor to have a press conference with Shea Steele in a fireman's uniform. And standing up there, and George Tibbet to stand up there and say it's racist, and all these things been happening, racist in our community, they haven't stood up with one. A real racism is one that will arrest 7 black men on the Atlantic City Expressway. Shout out to the Expressway 7 for standing up and speaking out about the systemic racism that he should have been standing up for. But yet he had them pointed out and had us arrested by the police chief that gave him money.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. We're still going to court almost 2 years later. And that was July the 4th, supposed to have been Independence Day. But you're going to arrest some black men, 7 of us. Out of all the people that was out there having us arrest. That's racism. When a white man, such as the governor, tell you to do that.
Steve, give me some clarity. Give me some clarity. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I got another point coming.
Okay, I was about to say, I was going to say some clarity. Is this the school district or the school system that this school that they're trying to create in Galloway? Is it not headed by Barry Caldwell's brother-in-law, the same lawyer who seems to be the puppeteer in the school system and in the city politics? Is he involved in that one too? Is that the case?
From our understanding, and it's rumored, and we're going to find out because we've been asking those questions. Camelot, which is that school program that's supposed to be implementing the program out there in that school, and the thing about it, the owner of the school is part of Camelot as well. So they had a nerve to, somebody gave him $1.4 million to renovate that school without getting planning approval in Galloway. So they thought it was a done deal. But when you start calling white people racist, and because they speak in their mind and the truth about what they were saying, and you don't like it, and because you have a self-interest for your Joe Jacobs and for Barry Caldwell and for your wife to move up, then all of a sudden you're the activist and say it's racist.
It's a race card that they could actually play at any time being black.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? They pull that race card when they wanted something in their favor. So it will tilt the scale into their favor. And that's what that really boils down to.
But you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. You're going to play cards, you're going to play the card right. You know what I mean? But be consistent with playing the card, okay? If you're out there doing the work, I can understand it. But you ain't out there doing it, well, what are you talking about it for?
Maybe all those years.
From my understanding, it's shot down. It didn't even make it through the planning. So now they got to start all over with their planning. They've been exposed because they try to cover it up, just like they did Kanye and Fraser about molesting our children in our community. All of them been exposed now. Now it's about accountability with them.
But look at all of these schools. Look at all of these schools, Steve. Whereas they could actually take some money and actually revamp a lot of these schools that just look at New Jersey Avenue. It's just sitting there. You look at Indiana Avenue, it's just sitting there. These schools could be places where they could actually train individuals, trades, how carpentry, plumbing, electrical. They could actually do these things in these buildings instead of just having those buildings sitting there dormant.
And they can also
occupy it other than the insects.
They can do land swap with the CRDA. Who has all this property, they're not doing anything else. But like you said, Indiana Avenue been vacant for years. New Jersey Avenue vacant for years. We had children in trailers at Martin Luther King School, and they just started to move those trailers because we started talking about them. Now, did we buy them trailers or was we renting them? Because if we was renting those trailers for all those years, somebody got paid. I would like to know who the contract was. Just like how can you have administration? How can you have administration building where the superintendent and all of them meeting at, right? Have entire 2 floors in a building downtown, and we have all these buildings, but you're renting it for for $250,000 a year of our taxpayers' money. Something's wrong with that. You've been doing this for year after year after year. When we have our own building.
Yeah,
that's the same building they had his campaign headquarters, right?
Exactly right.
Okay. It's always a hookup.
Exposure, man. Exposure.
It's always a hookup, but hopefully we're gonna make these connections going on, man. I'm real, like I said, I'm moved, and in this situation, I'm not even conceding on losing, because if you let everybody vote and the vote tallies up and then he would have won that way, I would have gladly called him and concede to him because he at least let the process be as it was supposed to. But I'm not conceding to being robbed. I'm not conceding for all these individuals whose vote was trashed and thrown in the trash and put in shredders, and the different elements of thievery that we know may have taken place in different areas, even city buildings. Until a justice is had for the people, I'm not ever conceding. So With this situation, he just stole himself another position. But we talked about him as far as work. He's never worked a job that it wasn't a hookup. Never worked a job that it wasn't a hookup. Maybe all this time he would have took a chance and worked in the casino industry to see how cards actually play out, how you actually work with cards, so you'll understand how when you throw cards out there, the impacts of these cards that you throw out there and where these cards fall. Because right now, all you building is another card added to the house of cards that you're building. And this wind is starting to develop, boy, because when that house of cards falls, you can't blame nobody else but you.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, you have to remember, you know, with all of the hookups, you know, and the homies and the hookups, the whole 9 yards, you know, all of this stuff is going to come back to it's going to come. Karma is a bitch. Yep. There's no doubt about it. It comes back at you one way or another.
And one thing we know about fast money, you know, see, and that's what people looking at. Well, I got a job. I'm making this much right now, and I know this is what I'm. But look at the long run. Look at the millionaires. They stretched it out for the next 25, 30 years. Look at the contract they're going to do with ShopRite. $18 million. Mm-hmm. They're going to build a facility that ShopRite may stay in for 2 weeks and pay $1 a year. While our tax money is going up and we can't even get our $500 check. Right. But you're going to spend $18 million now. You know what we can do with $18 million now? Look at the solution. We can create a co-op, buy some land in probably Pleasantville and help them out, and manufacture our own food, grow it out there, and ship it back, create jobs, and put it in the supermarket fresh. We can have it shipped from North Carolina to South Carolina with black farmers that need some type of help. You know what I'm saying? And it'll be cheaper and fresher than what you see in ShopRite.
I'll do one even better. With $4 million, we can take one of these warehouses that we have and change the inside to be an aquaponic, hydroponic system on the inside where there's no soil, manage the whole nine, create an education system with the co-ops in at Rutgers University and in Stockton University to help educate people to be horticulturists, farmers, and botanists to help develop food. In addition to that, marijuana. The way things have gone, we can manage all the systems, feed the entire city off a small percentile for just $4 million, including security, teaching, jobs, restaurants, cooks, chefs. All these things could be all interwrapped in this one program that could be an educational tool based off of Lang City, run by a Lang City, and managed for the benefit of Lang City at a small percentile. That would basically take and pay itself off in less than a year.
And get us out of the debt on our own.
Yep. But not only that, but you spoke about the marijuana. Remember, how many of those guys need to have their record expunged? Because remember, when marijuana wasn't popular, these boys were going to jail. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And some of them are still trying to get that stuff off their records left and right. Yep. So we have to start with the governor expunging a lot of these people's records. Because remember, before liquor became legal, a lot of people was in hot water with that. Then they made it legal. You know, and then one thing evolved into another. Now you're looking at the majority of the people that's going to, you know, start selling marijuana and stuff. It's going to be very hard for you to be a minority to try to get a license or some form of, you know, approval to start owning your own marijuana. It's going to be up there. You're going to have to pay a lot of money to actually get your own license or permit or whatever to start selling marijuana, to tell you the truth.
And you're absolutely right. And we've seen that coming because, like you said, alcohol. We was bootlegging, making our own liquor.
Exactly.
And then they put a seal on it and took us out of business. We was playing lottery. Before it was lottery, we was playing numbers. Exactly. They took us out of business and made lottery.
Exactly. There it is.
And then here they're gambling. We was gambling in the ball halls and the clubs. And next thing you know, they make it legal and say you need 500 rooms and have over $20 million in order to have a casino. Then, I mean, I could go to sports betting. We was betting on the field. Then they created sports betting, took us out of business and want to lock us up. Now here it is, marijuana. And when I went to testify about it, this is the marijuana legislation, y'all.
Exactly.
Look at that. I went to the Senate and I testified and I said, wait a minute. How much of this? And they have the nerve to start it off with saying most of the proceeds supposed to go towards black people. They admitted it has been oppressing black and brown people because of this. But we're not going to be the majority to get the proceeds. That's a problem with this. Going to be some problems with that. That's why we got to educate people, because a lot of people, black people, And people for the first time that was incarcerated had the opportunity to vote. Over 80,000 people for the first time in New Jersey. And they voted for this marijuana thinking it was a done deal. But we're telling people, after you vote, after election day, you got to hold them accountable to this package.
Hell yeah.
How you going to do that? See, they set up regulations after this. And then it has to go through the attorney generals after this. Then it goes to the municipalities and they decide where it's going to go. See,
exactly.
And you think you can walk outside and walk down the street with a pound of weed on you and everything's okay. Man, because you voted for it. But it don't work that way. We got to educate the minds of our people.
Absolutely. But one of the issues is they package it so it can be discouraging to people who are not involved in this whole process. They set it up. Lawyers are real slick about that stuff, and I've always been complacent about how lawyers, they mask everything in 500 pages of documentation for nothing. It's redundant information. All the vital information would be between page 465 and 467, 2 pages in between. That's where the vital information. So it's the whole concept, folks. Don't be scared of those documents, because you get 10 people on a 1,000-page document. 10 of y'all get 100 pages. Each of y'all can get 2 pages to help you, so you got 50 pages to read over a weekend. By the time you're done, you're familiar with the entire legislation. You can find the holes, you can find the truths in it. But we look at documents and scared of reading when we're fearful. What they say, the best place to hide stuff is in a book sometimes to our own people, and that's a shame.
Even sometimes all of those paperwork don't mean jack. All of that paper, they just do it to scare the hell out of you. Being a banking examiner, being certified as a professional, I've seen documents, especially come from mortgage companies, when I'm challenging them in a foreclosure case, and what is called padding the documents. You'll go through all of these different, pages, and then in between, they'll have a whole lot of blank pages in between to make it look real thick, and it's called padding the documents. And that's what they do. And sometimes, like Steve said, they put language inside there, either one that you can't understand, or put wording inside there that doesn't make no damn sense whatsoever. And that's what's going on. It's called padding.
I'll give you the last time we did that. The last time we did that was S11 and S12 when it was presented to us, and led into the MISRA Act, the Municipal Stability and Revitalization Act. It was presented to City Council in a package so you can read the whole thing. Said you can read it within a week's time. Did anybody read it? Hell no, they ain't read it. Because every time, for those of us that read it, we've highlighted certain areas. How do you mean? How can you do this? Oh, I didn't see this, Councilman. My own colleagues lying to us, talking about you read it, and we identified it. There was teams. I remember Masjid Muhammad, and the rest of us that were looking at this documentation, ripping it up, looking at this, and then bring it to the table like, yo, you guys didn't read it. It's the same fools that don't read now. It's the same fools that you allowed to ascend to the 7th floor who never read a fucking document. But now all of a sudden, we're basically bound to the shit that you've allowed to happen because people don't read.
But you have to understand, that's historical. That's historical based on when you're talking about, because remember, I went back into time, not only with as far as this, what they call a great switch, but I also went back in time, as far as the 40 acres and a mule. The majority of the people that did not receive the 40 acres and a mule were individuals who did not know how to read, did not want to know how to read. Right. But the ones who were determined to actually learn how to read, whether they get it from their master or whether they get it from somebody who went to a master and actually learned how to read, is the ones who actually gained that land. And I'll give you a perfect example. Chris Tucker, his family received that 40 acres because his great relative actually decided to learn how to freaking read. That's right. And it made a big difference. They end up owning land for generations to come. You see, it makes a big difference.
And that's a good example about reading, because most of them that had the 40 acres in the mule, they said, yeah, we're going to give it to you, but how are you going to cultivate the land? You got to come back to us and buy the tractors. you got to buy the seeds to grow it. And where are you going to get the money from? And we own the equipment. So we'll tell you what we do. Sign this paper over to us. We'll rent the equipment to you to own this property back. And we'll hoodwinked and bamboozled all over again.
And then let me bring up sharecroppers.
Right. Let me bring up a point that you was bringing up. Mo, you was talking about the S11, but remember before that, because I remember being at that council meeting when they would come to the transitional aid. That's where it started. The state said on the transitional aid, you sign for this money, and we would actually give you the money, but we would have to run Atlantic cities for a specific time.
That same document said that you sign here, but you can't use this money to sue us.
Yes.
You can't use this money to sue us. They made us sign a document saying we are going to help you pay this bill by giving you the money that we got from you anyway.
Yep.
But you can't sue us using this money.
It is.
And I'm like, not all of that money came from that money. I'm like, let's sue them. Let's get at them. Let's do it.
Right.
Let's defend ourselves. No, we can't do it. No, they said we can't do it. Master said we can't do this and this. Are you bugging? But anyway, yes, thank you for reminding us about that.
That's how we got where we at. So what happened, I said that for a reason, because the state didn't really take over. We gave it to them.
Yep.
If we signed it, you signed the contract, you gave it to them.
It's a system. System worked, didn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Atlantic City is nothing but a monopoly board. We all know this. It's a game of monopoly. Come on. Some people play that game and they cheat at monopoly. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's happening.
But
did you recognize how monopoly changed?
But they didn't share the information with the masses of the people. It still go with the information where people could have said, rose up and said, no, wait a minute, hold it. That's our money. It's not only belongs to you as a public servant, but you're supposed to serve us. And serving us, we need to check this before you sign that document. Let's have meetings and town hall meetings to discuss this document, because that's our future. Mm-hmm. You know, you're giving away your sovereignty and everything else. So it's very important that we, moving forward, we have some transparency, and transparency leads to accountability. And unless we get to that, we're going to continue to have this problem, because a lot of young people, they don't know what's going on here. But if it wasn't for you, Mo, having this conversation, you and Hug, you know what I mean? If you guys were having this conversation right now, how would people know? I mean, really think about it. We don't have no CNN come down here. You know what I mean? The Washington Post and Huffington News. We don't have that. I remember going up when we was doing those marches up north. Man, I all kind of tiptoe press and everything, man, was coming out the woodwork. I was like, where y'all been? Y'all ain't never come down south.
Exactly.
They want to cross the border.
Yeah, they want to cross the border. Come south of the border, you know?
Yeah. They want to control it, keep it that way. But you hit it on the nose. That's why they want to keep it that way. When Chris Christie enacted all the tools necessary to take out our radio stations, to take out our news coverage, because at that time they made sure that things were strict. Right. They eliminated when Channel 2 wasn't able to function no more through the budget scandals and other stuff. They eliminated the opportunities for people to gather information from within the community. So it was a tool used against us. So that's one of the elements that I know Adrian and I have been pushing. Like, you know, we have to fill in that gap. We have to do what we can by being conduits, bringing people who are aware of it, give them a chance to speak. We've given Brother Kevin Hall a chance to come on. We've given Hank come on, and they did a show for a long period of time that was really informing people. Yes. But he got squeezed out, or they got squeezed out. So we shared our platform to them so we can share information, and we kept on doing it. We talked to at one time we had if I'm not mistaken, I think John Devlin came on. The school board at that time was the acting president who was voted out, but still fighting for the children, to give us more of an expansive definition of what was going on at that time. We've had, of course, my council queen, Latoya, come on to talk about different things. And then we've had different people to speak from different perspectives to give us at least a different view of how things have gone and how we looked at it. We talked about cryptocurrency. We talked about the music industry, radio industry. You got Adrian talking about soca music in Trinidad, and bringing history and bringing forth and the way things are going. So we try to be a conduit, man. It's just the more and more that's happening, the more we're like gravitating to having to make this available to people so they can be informed. You know, they can make better decisions after they learn about things, man. Because
and they need a newspaper around it that represents the point of view of the people in all earnest.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's so important, because that's one thing that Atlantic City in this area just don't have. Yep. And you can't tell me with all of these people and all of these black people that they can't put together a newspaper of some sort to represent the damn black people.
That's
right. I mean, we're vocal as hell. You know what? We always got to lean on the Atlantic City press, which is totally biased and BS, as we all know.
and which never do no investigative reporting.
Never.
Because I've sent them plenty of articles in different press releases. They didn't print nothing. That's why, you know, the airways, you know, what we're doing right now is very key. Now, let me ask you a question, Mo. Chris Brown and Mr. Persky, two white guys that kings, and they're sitting in the background, and why the mayors think
Republicans making money, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do they do? And why haven't they been out in our community? You know, they're making money. I mean, what are they doing? Can you? I mean, you in government, so I'm curious. With these two white guys, one of them that was very instrumental in casino gambling, come here, and the other one was a state a senator.
He was also the solicitor of the school board, solicitor of the city council at one point in time.
So very quiet about this issue with the Kanye Frazier and the molestation and what happened in the school system and our children. I mean, what do they do? What are we paying them for?
That's the question that we're still waiting to get answers from. Persky, the only thing I saw him do was advise the mayor at a mayoral candidate forum, like a speech coach, to either back up, don't say nothing, and repeat, like he was some sort of monitor for him to ensure that he didn't put his foot further in his mouth the way he did. That's the only thing I saw Steve Persky do.
Wait, hold on. You said he was working. He works for the city and doing a campaign. Right. During a campaign, he was working for the mayor. Can you do that? Is there a conflict with that?
Obviously, the conflict that when we talked about words having different meanings these days, conflict of interest seems to be something that don't even hold no weight. We even talked about the school board. Everyone's conflicted there, but all of a sudden they had a chance to vote. Come on, man. Conflict of interest seems to be nothing here nowadays. But he was there in the front row, basically guiding the mayor during his speech or during his debate, giving him ideas what he should and shouldn't say. Because we know, because we have videotape of him, we've had pictures of him being taken, and we've seen people actually, as he's guiding him, what to say and what not to say. Because so we know he's there for that.
But I'm curious, with all the experience of being a state senator and being on the Casino Control Commission and helping write the act and different, why would you want to be involved with being around a child molester protector? I mean, what is the interest? What is it? We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out, because making sense don't make money. And when it comes to morality here, trust me, there's a dollar value on it. And with all this being said, it's always business. Always business.
But they making decisions, but yet the small ones, the ones that still in public works that's making minimum wage, is the one that support the mayor the most and can vote for him. But these guys, they making more money and ain't doing nothing and can tell them to fire them day or tomorrow.
We called upon Chris Brown to find out, and hoping to get an ally from the state side to address some of the issues that we came about and we brought to the table, like we have a problem. One of the things that we still never got an answer for was when we try to submit names of people that we recommended for the MUA board that were representative of the community, African-American women, Muslim women, a few, and they totally denied them any opportunity in giving us this superficial filtering process that they say, well, you know, their resume doesn't speak to us as meeting the requirements. So we're asking, what's the requirement? It took them nearly 6 months to mention anything about a requirement. In the meantime, they've allowed people who were voted out to stay on board, who the person who's voted out stayed on board is also on the same board of the school district, of the schools that are being involved in this whole process of the alternative school, who's also the school that was he was the chair of a school that apparently gave a job to who's now in office right now as the acting mayor. There's no conflict here? Are you fucking kidding me? There's conflicts like crazy. And this person I'm talking about, whose husband was involved in illegalities, but he got a court intervention program because it was his first time ever. But everyone else had to go to jail. Wow. But he got intervention because he was wealthy.
Well, all of them that have these conflicts, especially the school board members, if they listening, conflicts lead to handcuffs. Conflicts lead to handcuffs.
Let's see.
Remember that. It may take a while, but the conflicts leads to handcuffs. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, if it wasn't for Linda Cohen doing such a wonderful job investigative journalism, again, identifying that the press is not trying to do what's right, so she does what's right, gathering information. And she and I haven't always been on eye to eye, but I respect what she does and what she offers to the community, at least information. She's uncovered quite a lot of this conflict. She's uncovered some details that still to this day leave me shaking my head continuously. When you had a person on the body who's supposed to decide of sexual impropriety being discussed, who in their own past had sexual improprieties that were brought to the table, apparently born a child with someone who was underage. Come on, man. But I bet you we ain't gonna speak no truth to that one, right? Are we? We like to turn our head because we know folks. We like to turn our head because we related to people. We like to turn our head because they're gonna hook us up with something. And the reason we're turning our head, we're gonna snap our own necks and we're gonna die from our own hand.
And I'm gonna say that the reason why I mentioned Persky and also Chris Brown is because if we're in debt, and if they're not there to get us out of debt, then they don't need to be there at all.
But you know they're 2 of 6 people. There's 6 people apparently here from the stateside, assigned from the stateside or through the stateside, that's supposed to manage, overlook, and review all things city. I'm like, come on, man.
And we're in the condition we're in now. It's getting worse.
You can't see clearly how these things are questionable. You can't see clearly how this is ending up. And a lot of the times they're saying, well, you'll see. All this is going to make sense soon. You'll see. Okay.
I don't get it.
I can't walk around with my toes crossed and my fingers crossed. I might fall on my face. But I'm hopeful, but how long can hope with no real effort last? And
well, believe it or not, that's what faith is. You know, there's things that you hope for, but yet not seeing. And that's what we're walking in faith right now. And I learned that from walking those 67 miles. You know, every step was walking in faith, and we're walking in faith to see that the devil don't rule forever. You know? And you know, we can just keep on doing God's work and what's right, man. It's power. We would be the winner, living or dead. You know,
that's right. That's right,
and that's true.
That's right. Yeah. I just noticed that we had somebody by the name of Tyrone Jackson tied in on Facebook. I don't know if it's a real person or it's someone who's a bot or something just giving out information or just riding us. But I want to make sure I always post anything that's posted up there, as long as it's not derogatory, as long as it's not disrespectful to anyone or anything, any protected bodies. But if you just have an opinion, cool, we'll share your opinion. And this person was very opinionated, so I want to make sure that I come across and share that information. Damn.
And I know he did say something about our school system.
Yeah, let's go back to the public school. He says public schools are an abomination. Public schools should be abandoned. They become prisons. The teachers are overpaid and the students are underserved. Schools are Marxist indoctrination camps. Wow. That's deep.
Strong.
Yeah. It's a strong statement, but you know, that's something to consider. People's purview give them or lend them the passion behind the statements that they say. So obviously, this guy's staring at some things that are considerable. But this one had me up. He says there'll be a massive die-off of humanity within the next 2 years from the graphene oxide in the vaccines. The variants are coming from the vaccinated. The vaccine's genocide. That's scary, man. Yeah. That's the scary. That's the truth he's living with. Hopefully, it's just the truth he's living with.
Teach his own. Teach his reach.
Yeah. Stay educated. And that's another thing that we try to do.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That's the bottom line. Because you're not going to get out of this pandemic if we all don't get vaccinated. That's for sure, and that's been proven.
What's the ultimate truth? This is life. When you're not going to get out of it alive. That's how it is. But I really appreciate the conversation, brother. It is 12:26 p.m. Probably a lot later than you're up, brother Steve, because I know you're an early riser. But I appreciate the fact that you came on because it's really important.
Always burning the clock, Mo. You know that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It kills time. You know. Runs the clock.
That's right. You know, and I'm getting ready to write some resolutions, man. To change this thing. The resolutions got to start, and the orders have to start coming from the community.
Absolutely, because that's where the power is.
So you're going to hold them accountable. It's supposed to be for the people, by the people. If the politician's not going to do it, then we have to have a movement and do it ourselves.
Absolutely.
Write it up and carry it out.
Mm-hmm. But before you go, I wanted to highlight something that probably was not necessarily talked about and not many people knew about. In your opposition of the mayor, and I'll just say that nicely, when the governor was brought to the small gathering of friends to support the Democrats in the election. I'll say a small gathering because I bet you he was fooled to think he was going to have 100,000 people out there. And we saw maybe 20 people and they all related from the same household, same group. He was sort of disappointed. But what he did see was a pink sign up there.
That's right.
That was held up with images. One with the mayor had this wonderful image that he seems to always seem to be in like this. And the other one with the governor. And next to a governor, I think is the topic that I think we need to clarify, that people may not be aware of, that aligns himself with the statement about being a child, a
molester protector.
Molester protector. The person that was next to the governor was his name Maxine Gellerman? Is that the one from Epstein? Was that his aide? Because I think that's the case. The discussion is Governor Murphy, being as wealthy he is, has been in circles with questionable people. Governor Murphy was seen and shown many times in pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeff Epstein has died, but he was the one locked up for trafficking, child sex trafficking, youth trafficking, international prostitution, and child trafficking. And his aide, the female, she's British, just recently has come to justice, but that was the person in that picture. And when it was recently asked of him what was the relationship, he made sure he skated away as quickly as possible without having to answer that question. So as people were identifying this stuff, they may not be aware, like, who's the white guy? That's Murphy. Who's the white girl? They might not know. That's the picture that was depicted, because on a national scale, there's a discussion that was starting to arise about that.
Right.
Obviously, it seems to have been stifled. His millions of dollars put into place to protect him from having to answer the question. And this is not to say that he was involved in anything, because I don't know whether he was involved in anything. However, the fact that he protected his profile or protected his image in the ways that he has, so he didn't have to answer that sort of question. Like, what was the relationship? And were you involved in any aspect of it? Because people take pictures all the time. Well, in politics, you're famous for taking pictures all the time. And if you start paying attention to the pictures, maybe you need to ask, why didn't you in that picture with that person?
That's right.
Maybe you need to do that.
Well, one thing you're talking about is the governor came to Atlantic City to have like a rally before the election.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that he came to 6th Ward, where mostly the Bangladesh community was.
Yes.
When it's a fact that most of the Black community, especially Atlantic City, is the one that voted for him the most, over 90-something% of the Black vote. But he did not, in 4 years, come to Atlantic City for no type of rally, no type of town hall, no nothing totally disrespected, and took our vote for granted, and went down there with most of the Bangladesh community that don't live in Atlantic City. So that was a disgrace. And then the other thing people forget, this is the same governor when the cities started opening up. He put Camden, Atlantic City, and Trenton together because there was violence in the communities, and mostly Black communities. And he made a statement because the shackles came off,
Yes.
Because it got a little hot. They opened it up and the shackles came off. They were let loose. And so that's a statement like they started shooting each other because the shackles are off from them. They're a little free because of COVID is over now. That is a statement you can't come back on. Shackles relate to slavery.
Yep.
So when you're saying most of the black communities, right, was set free and start killing each other, that's racism. You don't have to you can't cover that up.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is, when he starts supporting someone that like Marty Smalls, who's been protecting this person, this animal that's abused our children and pictures and video all over the country and all over the world, and went to the school system and then had a job for DCPNP, and the governor don't make a statement or want to investigate it, it's suspect of saying that's how you feel about our children and our black community. We don't have to make that up. This is reality, and this is what's happening.
Absolutely. And that's something that we have to be very cautious about, man, because the reality is that sometimes the imagery that you see isn't what it is, man. And we have to make sure we bring truth to it, because he hasn't come down, although he was in Seagate quite a few times in torrential weather to promote the seafaring or the mariners businesses over there in Seagate. He almost got blown off the side of the damn dock one time in bad weather, but he made sure he was there.
Well, the other part I missed out on, I had the pink sign out there, and I had other people with me, but because of retaliation and the threats from the mayor and the governor's office, everybody can't be seen with me because they would try to attack them, their jobs, their houses, and everything else, like intimidation and threats. They like the mafia here almost. Yeah. So therefore, I had to hold the sign this time, and it was like a silent protest. The sign spoke for everything. The mayor came in, Mayor Small walked through the gate. When he seen that sign, and took a picture. He walked, and then somebody that he was with made a comment about it. He made a U-turn, turned around and said, let me take a picture of this. I was holding up the picture. Take a minute pictures if you want, because this picture was saying a lot. And it basically said a picture of him, like you said, and the governor, and it said child molester protectors. Now, if they're not protecting a child molester, then they're definitely not uncovering what happened, and so it won't happen again. That's all we're asking for. Right. So it's about accountability, and that's how we're going to continue to do it, because it's working. But thank you, Mo. Thank you, Mo, and I appreciate you. Standing up, man. Truth to power, man. You've been doing that ever since I known you. So you're a good brother. Thank you, if anybody talk about you, send them over here to me. You ain't got to defend yourself, man. Send it, please. Please. But I'll ask them, where have they been? Yeah,
true that. But I like I said, I've always appreciated your standing over from the very, very beginning as I met you, man. And you've even through the hardships and sometimes the negativity by our own folks that sometimes you've had to receive, man, you stood up for what's right, and I really appreciate you. And trying to even bring initiatives to help empower the communities, man. So that speaks a lot of your caliber as a cognizant black man who's a leader. And that's why I appreciate you, man, consistently outside of just being my brother. And doing so the way you have, putting yourself out there, speaks a lot, because in our society today, everyone expects someone else always to do something for them. They're always looking for superheroes to come in to clear up the issues that they can't do it themselves, or they don't have the bravery or the courage to address themselves. And you putting your neck out as long as you have for the benefit of all, just shows the type of caliber that you are, man. So I tip my hat and salute you for being that brave brother that you are. And
I definitely thank you, but I put God first, man. God has all the faith. I just want to say finally that everybody, we let's not get discouraged. Sometimes it looks like a rough road, but look at all the people that came before us that overcame these issues.
Exactly. That's
an example that people, religiously, Jesus, Muhammad, and Moses didn't have a good peaceful ride, dealing with their people as well. So what makes us better than them? So let's keep the faith and let's keep it going. And thank you again. Appreciate you both.
Right.
You know, the same thing, Steve, you know, just to add something, you know, Martin Luther King, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, Barack Obama, all of these guys were community activists. You know what I'm saying? They actually speak the truth of what was going on. And that's what you do, you know, and the devil never sleeps. We know this, you know, so we know that you don't get any sleep, Steve. So, you know what I'm saying? You know, the devil's going to keep chasing you, brother. So just stay wide awake and stay wide alert. You know what I'm saying?
And Mo, the Councilman Moore told me to tell you, you know, hi to you and speaking, you know, he's proud of you as well.
Brother Steve, that's my man. Good people. I really appreciate it. But, and again, as I said, I'm going to take my position in people who were in my position before, who stepped away from the position proudly, to say that we're not ever going to give up the fight. It's just now time for us to switch lanes and to fight in a different format. So I proudly extend my thank yous to everyone. Brother Steve Moore, definitely appreciate for him the efforts he put in, and always appreciating his wisdom sometimes that he shares with me. And that's what I look for him, for the wisdom. And it's good to see that he's maintaining, man. And we appreciate you looking out for your brother. As they say, and my brother's keeper, brother, you are by example your brother's keeper, and I appreciate that.
Stay alert, no doubt.
All right. Thanks again, brothers. I appreciate you, brother. God bless and love you all.
God love you too, brother.
Man. Thanks again, Steve, as always.
You're welcome to stay on, man, because we usually talk a little about this and that.
Yeah. You know,
like I told you, I used to deal cards in the casinos. I know when to hold them, when to fold them.
Man, okay.
Hey, I've been probably did it way longer than you, my brother. They're still trying to pull me back in. You know, I was down there a few days ago. They're still trying to pull a brother back in again.
Right.
So I know the deal. Not to mention, I'd like to add a little something. You know, last night I've been on the road, you know, heading up to New York for that. My younger brother, the bonk, you know.
That's right. Let him know.
Inducted to the New Jersey State Boxing Hall of Fame. So I had my whole family came in from Las Vegas. And man, it's been exhausted giving these guys a tour.
Well, definitely tell them congratulations. I definitely wanted to be there, man. If I had known, man, congratulations, man. And tell them I want to see that belt one day.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We were all up there. They flew from Vegas. We had family members from Connecticut, Rhode Island came on down, you know, to Jersey. You know, my family members, they're leaving to head back to Vegas tomorrow, so I'll be the limo driver tomorrow also, you know. I was the limo driver yesterday. Yeah, you know, back and forth 2.5 hours all the way up there to New York there and back.
So that's one thing that we're paying homage to and also respect to. Brother Allen Huggins, inducted into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. He's been a referee for many years.
Yeah.
But he's also honorably a retired fireman.
Battalion chief.
City.
Yeah.
So that's two honorable situations where he's retired honorably, left it, and now he's shining the way he is, chilling in Vegas. So let him enjoy his life, man. But he's getting his flowers. It's good.
You know, like you say, he's getting his shine on. There's no doubt about it, one. And, you know, and then when I hear a lot of people, you know, talk about foreigners this and foreigners that. No, we come here, we work pretty damn hard. You know what I'm saying? When they're like, all these foreigners are taking our job, bullshit and miss me on that one. You know what I'm saying? Because we work hard as hell. And Alan will say that, my whole entire family. That's all we've done is work our asses off. You know what I'm saying? To get where we are.
Right.
You know, so we're not short or shine. We're not going to pull back from it. You know, my sisters, you know, same thing. We work our asses off. You know, so I was pulling 80-hour shifts. I know, Steve, you said that you used to deal cards. I've been dealing cards ever since I was 18 years old, being one of the youngest dealers in the city of Atlantic City to deal blackjack.
So you was at resorts? Was you at resorts in Hollywood?
No, I worked at
Hollywood Pit.
Was that?
At resorts, casino in the Hollywood Pit, or was you at Playboy?
No, let me give you a little history of my family members because we're like the blue blood of the casino industry. You know that TV show, The Blue Bloods? We're pretty much it. You know what I'm saying? My older sister opened resorts. She was one of the first floor people there. Wow. My mother was Sharon Font Hayden Hall, and she was one of the black supervisors, the very rare black supervisors of the housekeeping department. Wow. And then they converted it to resorts. And that's when my sister came on board and ended up being a supervisor at resorts, opening up the first casino back in 1978.
Right.
You know, now you spoke about the next one, Playboy. My older brother opened up Playboy. Then he went and moved over, and then he opened up the Showboat. He opened up Trump Plaza. You know, he opened up the Trump Taj Mahal, and then he went to Vegas and actually was running the casino floor for the Palms Hotel and Casino.
Wow.
So my entire family, you know, Alan did not just came in, you know, as a firefighter, because before Alan was working, you know, for Tropicana Security, because I worked at Tropicana Security before him, and they recognized the last name. So then he came in after I did, based on the last name. Same thing as my older brother. When he worked for Trump Plaza, they recognized the last name, and that's how I got in there. And being a dealer, you know, I stayed there for like 25 years dealing blackjack in the high limit pit. I know a lot of celebrities, the whole 9 yards. So I give you a you know, verse, line of scripture of a rundown of Atlantic City when it comes down to the casino industry.
Well, you know the casino history, it helped me get into activism because I was fired and terminated. I started at Resorts as a crap dealer. And, you know, craps is very hard for a black man to be in the pit, especially in the Hollywood pit on the front floor, you know. And then I went to Playboy and opened up with them and being a supervisor sitting in the pit. So that's when I got discriminated against. And, you know, one of the white boys called me the N-word. And I'm like, listen, you know, the blackness came out of me, and I'm like, nah, I ain't having this. and the more I fought for my job, man,
from here on in.
I went from the Division of Civil Rights to EEO. I went everywhere. So I said, wait a minute, this ain't for me then. You know what I mean? So you know how they blackball, you don't let you work in there.
Yeah, I know the deal, yeah.
So I ended up in 31 North Virginia, man. Went to jail and been striving for my people as an activist ever since. So I thank the casino industry for creating what you see here today. If I hadn't got fired, I probably wouldn't be here.
It's not a stumbling block, it's a stepping stone.
Yes.
And use it as such, as a stepping stone. Absolutely. Don't use it as a stumbling block. And the thing I tell a lot of people, try to move on from it, learn from it, and better yourself based on it.
That's right.
You know, and I was at the Hard Rock just a few days ago, and I ran into a few friends of mine who were actually in the high limit pit because they worked with me at Trump Plaza. Right. And this funny was really strange because when I first walked in there, one of the guys would lean up against the roulette table, and he was the assistant shift manager of table games. So he recognized me like, hey, Adrian, you know, how you doing? The whole 9 yards. The guy standing next to him, he introduced me to the guy next to him, who is the shift manager of day shift, who just started working there. So then, you know, he's like, yeah, Adrian, I'd like you to meet Frank. And I'm like, hey, Frank, you know, John, I'd like you to meet my older brother, Jerry. So my brother, Jerry, actually says, Frank, you don't know me? And Frank looked at him, and he's like, Jerry Huggins? He's like, yeah, that's me. You know what I'm saying? And then before you know it, we all ran in the same circles. We had no idea that everybody was connected. Yep. And that's the casino industry right there. A lot of people are connected left to right.
So you're saying, Adrian, you're connected, you're a mobster? You saying that?
You know something? No, I got a great network, Mo. Just remember that. Because network is the next word. I always tell you that. What part of that did you miss? You know what I'm saying? Your network is your net worth. You know what I'm saying? The more people you know, the bigger the circle, the better it is.
Yeah, the circle's so big, we should be owning the casino by now. We don't work there enough.
You know the thing about, but first you have to unite. That's the hardest thing. That for a lot of black people, they have a lot of disenfranchised. There's a lot of hate. There's hateration from a nation, and you got to unite. Yeah. And that's the problem right there. We can't seem to get it freaking together. So as long as we can't get it together, all the people of ethnicity, what we're going to do is to separate, divide, and conquer. This is what's happening here. Yeah. Sheila Oliver is the freaking lieutenant governor under Murphy. Look at that. Anytime, look at the same thing with Biden. Look at Kamala Harris. When he first went in there, he's like, I'm going to give her all of the duties of all of the shit that was going on in this country and let her handle it. Right. You know what I'm saying? And then everybody says, where's Kamala? We can't see her. Where is she? You know what I'm saying? But this is what happens. They put somebody in color to control the rest of them on the bottom. Come on. It's obvious. You know what I'm saying? The Democratic Party will not put a black man as being the very top to actually, get a lot of lieutenant, governors. Being black or being Hispanic or being, they always put a rich white guy off of Wall Street somewhere to be the freaking governor. and then they will back them. But then when they need the votes, they come back to the black community and says, "Hey, we need your vote. Vote for us because we're Democrats. We don't keep you down. We'll keep you down because we're used to having you down, and you ain't gonna go nowhere. So don't worry about it." And that's what happens.
That's true.
And so the uniting part is the problem. We can't seem to get it together to unite. Look, even black businesses. How many times have you heard black people say, "I ain't gonna buy nothing from that black business because I think they're gonna short me or they're bad, this bad, that, or whatever the case is." They don't promote black businesses. I know, Steve, because I ran a black freaking business. You know what I'm saying? And some of those people come in there looking for a hookup. I says, "Can you go to another person? Can you go to a Sprint store in Mays Landing and ask for hookup?" No,
Right.
So don't bring that shit here. Miss me on that bullshit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason why I mentioned to you being, like Mo says, he's Hispanic. A lot of people, until they really listen to my accent, say, "Wait a minute, you're not really." This one young lady says, "I thought you was black." I says, "I thought I was too." You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
She said, "I thought you was black." She said, "You're from Trinidad. I thought you was black." I said, "I thought so too." You know what I'm saying? Because I have an accent and stuff. My whole family does, but it shows our origin. We still have ties to Trinidad. As a matter of fact, I was up in Trenton, New Jersey today, Hamilton Township, all the way up there, patronizing a West Indian restaurant. All the way up there. For the cuisine. And I mentioned to the young lady, if they were to bring that down here, the game will be over because all we have is one Jamaican restaurant. I remember when they had one in Pleasantville and they had a Spanish guy running it, and it looked like he was Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? And then everybody picked up on that. They're like, "Yo, no, you know what I'm saying? You're Puerto Rican. You know what I'm saying? You're not from Jamaica and you're not from Trinidad or any one of the other Caribbean nations like that." So we have to support each other like what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Getting out front, getting the word out, getting people educated of what's going on in the community, because it's going to slip by, and at the end of the day, they're going to have nothing.
Right.
Nothing. I see that over and over. You spoke about the school board. Okay. When these people actually messed around, I told these guys from Pleasantville at the last election when I was out there at the polls, I said, "You know something? You guys can't seem to get it together on the school board. When it comes down to a lot of the BS that's going on and you're bickering from the inside. Do you really think that taxpayers want to hear about that bullshit that's going on? When a taxpayer, I've owned a property for 15 years in Pleasantville. Property taxes like 5,000 plus. Going to school, and I ain't got no damn kids going to school. Do you really think that I want to hear the bullshit that you're actually spewing? Why can't you guys seem to get it together? This person said, I'm going to go after this person. I'm going to go after this person. You're looking at vengeance instead of unity to try to pull the community together. Miss me with the bullshit. I said, you guys got to get it together because people are paying property taxes. You're taking their freaking money. You're getting, whatever you're getting from it, and they're not being represented properly. I said, that's bullshit. You got to get it together. And I tell all of them that when I was out there a few days ago.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Get it together because the property holders are paying and the businesses are paying. I own a business in Pleasantville. I own a house in Pleasantville. So I have interest in Pleasantville. My family owned a house in Pleasantville, Atlantic City. We grew up in Atlantic City, and my brother worked for the city of Atlantic City. So do you really think that we want to hear the nonsense that's going on with all this crazy shit? No. We need people to get it to freaking together. Unite and come together and actually have the community prosper and rise up. That's what it's all about. Other than that, my family, we put a lot of shit into this community. And like I said, we need to get it together. And that's the reason why I always said to you, Mo, we need to have, like it says, your network is your net worth. Have a strong network where we could actually prosper. Because if one failed, we all fail, folks.
That's right.
If one person failed, we all fail. If one student failed, we all fail because it shows that a sign that they're slipping underneath between the cracks. They're slipping between the cracks. That's not cool. Right. That is definitely not cool. And I will get up in front of the school board and I tell them the same shit also. And I dare any one of them to try to challenge me because I got a pretty damn good footing on what I do and where I came from. Absolutely. My family rose up and we fought like hell to do what we did. I came up in the 70s. We came up in the mid-70s. Even when Alan was up there last night, he says, my mother worked her ass off when we came from Trinidad in the 70s to get to where we are today. And he never thought that he would be on, being recognized, as far as Bronson is concerned, the stuff that you see on my wall behind there, that's from the city of that's from Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia. That's a citation from the city of Philadelphia. Not everybody gets that shit. You know what I'm saying? You know, my nephew last night, he says, "Uncle, when you said that you got a citation, I'm thinking you got a ticket."
Right.
For the city, I says, "No, son, it is not a ticket." You see, and that's the mentality that we were taught, you know, growing up. A citation is a ticket. No, I said no. It's an honor to receive a citation, and that's that big thing that you see on my wall behind me. You know, the other ones are from like, you know, my other, you know, accolades and stuff like that. The other one from the state of New Jersey for running a business. You know, I receive awards for that also.
Right.
So I can speak from power because I've been there and I know what it's about.
That's right.
The only thing I got.
I could come from Steve. I could come from so many different angles because even my nephew being, you know, veterans there, and it's so weird because my cousin passed away many years ago. He served in Iraq and he served in Afghanistan. See what I'm saying? And he was there, you know, when all this stuff was going on. He died in the Potomac while kayaking with his nephew. You see what I'm saying? And he served the military very well, you know, when he left this earth. You know, so I also have relatives who fought in the military for this country, and I also have still one of my nephews are in the Marines. You know, so I can speak from any. I have the ability to speak from any different angles, and I dare people to try to challenge me on the bullshit. You know, so when I say what I mean what I say, and I'll tell anybody that. Don't try to bullshit me. I know what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? I'm a lot of guys, you know, on city council and some of these guys on the board never ran a business in their damn life. The city is the biggest business. It's the biggest business. You have 9 casinos on one island, you know, and you're running the damn island. And if you don't know how to run the damn island, you need to get the hell off the island. That's the bottom line. You know, and that's what I'm saying. You know, straight up and down. You know, so. You know, sorry to just mouth off like that, but just let
man. Teach, brother. Teach them, man.
You know, a lot of people, you know, like they don't know a lot of us, but we run in a lot of big circles. You know, my family members.
Powerful, man.
Salute to the Huggins family.
Absolutely.
We run in big circles. You know, you won't know a lot of us because, like it says, a lot of my younger brother friends, they don't know that he has an older brother. My older brother friends don't know that he has 2 younger brothers. My sisters, a lot of people, until we all get together, they're like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on here? And a lot of people found that out last night. Like, oh, you guys are related? I'm like, yeah. You know, nieces graduating, you know, from Rowan University, you know, going to Syracuse University, you know, Brown University. We go on and on. And all of us are West Indians.
Was that your sister? A couple pictures that you posted earlier?
Exactly. That's the one. That's my other sister. Correct. I have 2 sisters. One of them is she's a VP on Wall Street. When the World Trade came down, she was working. She was a vice president of a company on Wall Street. So they would not let her break through that glass ceiling to become the president of that company. She would tell us she worked her ass off. And that's one of the main reasons why her son now is in med school. You know, he's going to have his PhD, you know, as an MD, as a doctor.
Okay.
You know, but my nurse that I was with earlier, she's a nurse. She's an RN. She works, you know, for a long time as an RN. Even once the pandemic hit, she's like, forget about it. I'm out of here. She was like a germaphobe. She doesn't like people. She's a nurse. She's like, I'm out of here. She don't, even as of today, you can be fully vaccinated, but she won't let you touch or hug her. Just to tell you. And I'm family. You see what I'm saying? So, like I said, we run in different circles, but we're all out there and we see what's going on. And like I said, the black people need to unite and get it together. You know, during the general election, when it rains, we all know that a lot of Republicans, they love it when it rains and the weather is bad because they know that a lot of black people and minorities are not going to come out to vote because they think that brown sugar melts with water. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason why.
That's another one. Brown sugar melts in water. Watch out, boy.
So the white sugar melts too.
Yeah, but Trump inspires them to come out. He's like, we got to throw all of these people out. We know that you're gonna melt, but at the same time, we got to get these Democrats out of office. You know what I'm saying? And the black people on the other side saying, yeah, brown sugar melts. You know, we miss me with that stuff on election day. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, but this was a very important election because it was for the governorship. You know, and even Murphy came very close to losing it. Jack Ciattarelli says that, he doesn't, he's not going to concede or whatever he wants to take it to court. Your friend, Larry Ham even says, we spoke about that every Sunday, Wednesday and Sunday on WBLS because I'm on there with those guys. So I know about the activism and the stuff that goes on. So I hear it like left and right. You know what I'm saying? So Larry Ham has been, I believe he graduated from Princeton University.
Yeah, and mentioning that, we marched through Princeton, man. We took some pictures outside of
How
Princeton.
did I know that?
I didn't. That's one of the first college. You definitely know the history, man. You know him, man. And
I know the guy. Yeah, he's made a lot of comments. When I've posted stuff online on WBLS Open Line on Sunday, he's made a lot of comments. And he's like, "I agree with you. You're 100% hug the whole 9 yards." Yeah,
good man.
He is a very good man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
definitely so.
But and then that march that we had together, that's what loyalty looked like. Everybody wanted what loyalty looked like. When you march 67 miles with someone, every day for 10 miles for 9 days, that's loyalty.
Yeah,
you ain't got to prove it no other way other than that.
Something else also, you have to go back to many years ago when they had the Million Man March.
I was there too. Yep.
You still saying, both of you are shaking your head. You're like, I remember.
I was there, man.
That's when, and then it was followed by the Million Women March back then also. A lot of black women got together and, whole 9 years, and it was a huge march after that.
Then we had the Million Family March that I took about 40 families to. That was pretty good.
Which one was this?
The Million Family March.
The Million Family March, okay.
Yeah, right after the Million Woman March.
And then they had a Million Youth March that a lot of people didn't know about because it happened in New York.
Right.
And New York almost was torn down.
Oh, wow.
And I remember walking through those barricades with some of those young people, and the police was trying to stop them. They seen 10 more come behind them. They was like, okay.
See, but along the line, where did we miss the mark? Because we don't see those things here today. And the crime in the inner cities and with this pandemic and the money that's going out, it's still not helping a lot of, look at Philadelphia, very high crime rate. Look at Chicago, very high crime rate in the minority. There's an old saying that, when America catches the flu, the inner cities, they go into a seizure. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
But part of that is that, who's showing you the news? You got to look at that as well, because there's some good things in some of our communities and some good programs.
There's a lot of good things in the community.
But who's going to show that story of things going good? Because the more you show of something going good, then it's going to be hard to say that's a bad city. It's crime out there.
Right.
Because
now that narrative, right?
See the mindset of the people saying, look, it's good. Because you see the positive in. So it's who's telling the story. We got some scribes just writing these stories in these newspapers.
If you look at it, also, the majority of the people who are anchors are black individuals. They get sick and tired, and I know they do. Like Yuki Washington, some of these guys reporting all of these young people being killed on such a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? Your own people being killed in the street. It's like it's unreal. I know they get sick and tired of doing the news because they've even spoken like that off camera. That they're sick and tired of doing the news, but they do it because they got to pick up a paycheck.
Right.
But a lot of us don't own a lot of these TV stations.
An example of that, when a lot of unarmed black men get killed, if we didn't have our own, cell phones to show it, they will say that don't even exist.
Exactly.
And so, it's who's telling the news now. Now we're starting to report our own news like we're doing right now. And it's a whole different ball game than just showing the negative part of our communities.
Well, the thing about it is because some people say that they don't want to be vaccinated because they're afraid of a chip that they might put into the vaccine from Bill Gates, whatever the case may be. And I say, you walk around with a damn cell phone 24/7, and you got a chip in your freaking head every single day. They track you based on their GPS mapping and stuff. When you want to go somewhere, what do? You use Google Map. So they know exactly where you are because you're being followed every step of the way. So if you're worried about not taking the vaccine based on a chip, fool, you already got one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're being tracked, plus you're getting radiation at the same time.
You remember that? I know that. Because I sold a lot of these cell phones, Steve. I was one of the first print store in Pleasantville. I was one of the first Boost Mobile Cricket store in Pleasantville. I opened those stores. And when I opened those stores, I had to use a lot of, ingenuity to get inventory, because being black and being in the city and, the disadvantages, right. I had to overcome all of that kind of stuff to become successful at what I do. And not only that I owned that one, but I went ahead and owned two more, one in Wildwood and the other one on the south side of Pleasantville. So, selling cell phones it revolutionized the way we think and the way we act towards things. A lot of people these days spend more time on their cell phones than they do on a regular desktop computer.
True.
And it dominates our lives. We want to watch YouTube, we go to our cell phone. We don't go to a desktop computer. A friend of mine just told me, who actually repairs computers, like Adrian. A lot of those desktop computers, at one time, the parts were interchangeable. But now they actually put the parts in the computers where you cannot interchange the parts anymore. Get rid of the whole computer. Exactly. And buy a new computer because it's no longer interchangeable.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you were mentioning about the generation gap between the young and the old. And let's see, we have experience, like you just talked about, all the experience you have about the businesses and different things. And in order to share that with young people, we have to listen to them as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people feel we don't listen to them. Right. And it's like they figure, well, we don't know what we're talking about. Well, how do we get this old if we don't know what
we're talking about, right?
So we must learn to use our experience, but we never live like they live in today with this technology. Right. So we got to learn from them as well and say, listen, I couldn't have made it probably the way y'all living right now, with the violence in the community, with the technology you have, the education that you having right now, and no type of recreation or things to burn your energy like we used to have. So it's a different time frame. So we got to learn to learn from them how you deal with now, and they must learn how we made it so far. So we got to bring that together.
I want to quote something from Grandmaster Flash, because I love myself some records. You know what I'm saying? And music. We have to learn from the past to live for the future, and don't be a slave to no computer. You see, that's what needs to happen.
Ooh, there we go.
You know what I'm saying? Wow. We have to learn from the past. These kids these days have to learn from the past, the protests and all of that kind of stuff, to live for the future. And once again, you have to be an independent thinker. So you don't have to be a slave to no computer. Because remember, there's a man that's programming these computers. And if you don't know about it, that man is going to program that computer that's going to program your mind. And that's how he's going to get to you. Because then you will be looking at the computer over and over and actually agreeing with everything. But it's somebody in the background, like Google. You know what I'm saying? When you search for something, you see what I'm saying? Some of the biggest things. You had AOL, you had Google, you had Lycos. All of these guys went out of business, but they merged also, because that's the power of information. Yes. The power of information. Very, very crucial.
Oh, well, brother, I really appreciate the conversation. It was about to get that last hour. Sandy said the Wizard of Oz. Oh, yeah, the same concept. Basically, it's the Wizard of Oz, being able to control the minds off remotely.
Exactly.
Yes. Yep.
But before we close out, because like I said, we want to make sure that we get a chance. I really appreciate Steve for coming on.
Certainly.
Like we do every show. Our guests come on and we give you a chance to say a few words if you like to in closing. To promote whatever it is that you'd like to promote, or just to say, reiterate something you said in the past. So it's up to you. The mic's yours, brother. You want to say a few things in closing?
Well, again, it was hard to get off tonight, this morning. I enjoyed the spirit of everything you both said, and let's keep the movement going. I'm proud of everything you've done and everything we've been doing and talking about, and I'm sure a lot of people learn from the knowledge that we've given them, because that's what it's for, not to hold in. It's for us to give it out. And I just want to appreciate you. God bless, and thank you very much, and peace and happiness to everyone.
Absolutely.
Not only that, Steve, on WBLS Open Line, Larry Ham is also known as the mic dropper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's known as the mic dropper because a lot of the things that he drops on the wisdom, and I listen to the guy, and he makes a hell of a lot of sense of many things, But on this side, the South Jersey side, you're the mic dropper, my brother. You know what I'm saying?
That's an honor,
a compliment, man.
And I want to tell Larry that when I actually chat with him this Sunday. You know what I'm saying?
That's funny. Sandy's Sandy. Adrian's the in-house mic dropper because he's always dropping mics on us here. That's why we have our own little script. When he says something, it's like Adrian says, he drops his mics. So if he's bestowing upon you that honor also, that's something, man. That's big. That's big. But thank you. Adrian, say a few words for the crowd, man.
Like I said, when I come at you, Mo, I come at you live and in like Memorex. You remember back in the day, a lot of you at the Memorex tape, live and in Memorex. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, congratulations to my younger brother on his achievement. There's no doubt about it. It's very monumental, to the family. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, he's one in many. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people say, hey, Alan sounds like Adrian. Of course he does. You know what I'm saying? Of course he does. Yeah, exactly. Because that's where his structure came from. You know what I'm saying? Because my older brother moved away, and both Alan and I lived together with our parents for a substantial amount of time. One thing my sister, they were joking with yesterday, like, one thing about Adrian, he's always on time. And like, yeah, just like Alan, he's always on time. And that's the way we roll, and that's what it's about. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about family, man. It's all about the family unit, the family network. And like I've always said, be positive and test negative, and that's what it's all about because we're still in this COVID situation.
That's right. That's right. Sandy said you should have called him. You were 2 towns over. So he's about to get upset.
Look. For Sandy, the traffic up there was horrendous. It was horrendous. I've had buses trying to cut me off. I have people driving around on the white lines, the whole 9 yards, and cops following them. It was crazy. They're driving on the shoulder, and the cops are following them, going straight down. The traffic up around that area was crazy like that last night. It was horrendous, man. But not only that I dealt with that, but picking my family up from the airport in Philadelphia, it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock, but around 6:15 when I left here. So I was up there around 6:45 or whatever the case may be. The traffic jam was off the hook. And so this is what I've been challenging for the past few days. Even my girl says, Adrian, you must be tired as hell because I've done 2.5 hours going up there, same thing coming back. I was back up in Trenton today for, Hamilton Township up that way. That's about another hour and change and back. And then tomorrow I have to run it back to the airport and back again. So Sunday might be my only day to try to catch up in my sleep.
Well, hope you'll be able to do that.
But you only live once, and it's all about family, and that's my point. It's all about your family. You know what I'm saying? And we're all family here, so we have to keep it together. You know what I'm saying? We have to keep it together. And support each other because that's what you don't see a lot of. Support in the Black community. We need to support each other and support people that are doing the right thing, not only just Black people. People and brown people that's doing the right thing. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, I want to remind everybody we have a website at www.thenewnorm.club that archives information at all times. Any discussion that we've had, we're probably covering it there. So we have forward information like voters registration, vaccination information, or information dealing with economic hardships. You can find it there at our cyber mall. And also you can connect with Adrian Huggs, AG Huggs, with his shows, his radio shows that are starting to build and bigger and bigger and bigger every week. So if you're interested in getting information or getting to know us a little bit more, you can also leave us a note there so we can have discussions in future shows. If you'd like to talk about any specific topics, you're welcome to do that there. Remember, come visit our website, www.thenewnorm.club, because everybody's part of the club today. This is the new norm. This is how we get down. So I'd love to say thank you to everyone who's participated this evening, everyone who's watched and shared a few moments of your time, your busy schedule to come down and watch and do what we do. Just remember that life is short. And I'm going to test this. You will be surprised if you pay attention more, how more we're connected than we are separated. If we start paying attention a little bit more to the people that we love, we won't be so drastically lost. And I hope that everyone takes the time to appreciate those you love, those who are sick, those who are far away. Don't wait till tomorrow when you can make a phone call today. Don't wait for next week to go visit somebody if it's solely up the street, because life is not promised, and at any time someone could be gone and you'll be regretting that opportunity. So take that time to do so. For everybody watching the show, thank you for coming by. Where it's always the friends and families here in the New Norm 2.0 with Mo Delgado. Again, I sit here as the sexiest man in this chair right now, but I share the space with all these
whatever. Hey, there goes some self-indulgence at work there, Steve, if you have never seen that. A little bit of self-indulgence. Also, I'd like to ask, Renee Boyd, because she put something in the text earlier tonight. She's having a problem with the landlord-tenant situation or whatever. Drop me a line, in the website with Mo and stuff, and I'll let you know how to resolve that situation, because I have some good inside sources, also part of the network on how to get resolution.
Exactly. As always, that's Adrian's ready to help you out. Matter of fact, we'll probably be calling you really soon about our disposition that just took place recently, so give you some clarification. I'll probably call you tomorrow. But
all right, sounds good, because I got something for you also. I went up to that the Roti Junction. You know what I'm saying? Did I say more? I got one for you.
All right. Okay. So for everybody's watching, thank you for stopping by. We're hoping that you stop back by next week. As we said, there'll be some upgrades happening really soon, technical upgrades that'll give you some new perspectives, new camera angles, and a whole bunch of graphics. So as we're developing with life, just know we're here for you. We consider each other fans. So remember, make sure you keep each other close, keep faith in your hearts, and keep motivated, because every large journey starts with one step in front of you. So take that step in faith, man. We can make things work.
Hey, Mo. Also, just for the general viewing public, you have more than one sexy guy on this show right now. Okay, so
I'm just saying, in this chair, I am the sexiest.
Well, we're all sitting in chairs, all right? We're all sitting in chairs, okay?
In this chair, nobody got the style I got in this chair. The green.
And Steve, you love me, man. Keep up the good work, man. You look good in it. I love the three-piece suit, my brother. It's a good representation of authority. You know what I'm saying?
Always sharp.
Definitely.
With that being said, we wish you all a wonderful night, and until next week. And he says, just in the chair. I said, yeah, I understand. That's my man. All right, y'all. Be